What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for a final live stream of 2022. Been quite a year, and we had quite an event last week, being very successful, very profitable, going 5 money lines and 1 push with that Ankalaev draw. So it was a pretty fun time. Was riding high on a lot of bets last week and ready to take that success and bring it into the final week of the UFC betting calendar and make some money for the holidays. So I had to bring in the big guns for this one. I had Clint last week, and now I've got his co-host of the Deadlock MMA podcast and just an OG of the game. Manpreet is just such a successful and influential character in our space, a guy I was watching for a couple years before I got into this content creating game myself. So somebody that I look up to highly, and I'm just honored to have him on my show for the last one of the year. So let me bring in MMA Lock of the Night. What's going on, my friend? How you doing?
I'm good, dude. I appreciate the kind introduction there. I mean, it's just I show up every week and I do it. That's it. That's all there is to the secret sauce here, folks. Just show up and do it. And luckily, I've been doing it for the past 4 to 5 years now. But nah, man, I enjoy every single week of it. Enjoy coming across fellas like yourself who will share the same intensity in which we love this sport. I'm psyched to break this down with you, my friend.
Yeah, I know. And along that point, how long you've been doing this? 4 or 5 years, like you said. Now I have one. After this, I'll have 1 full calendar year of all 42 UFC events under my belt, and I've got. I was watching you for a couple of years before I got into this game. I had an appreciation for the knowledge and just the showing up every week, but now I've got an even more, enhanced, view of exactly what it takes to do this. I got a full-time job. This takes up the remaining hours of the week for sure. So all you guys that do content have been doing it just like Clint for years. I've got the utmost respect. So going to try to hang in here as long as I can. I'm not going anywhere. Want to do this even more and have some more content in 2023. And you also have started doing a lot more regional promotions as well, haven't you?
This just started I'd say just over the last couple of weeks, honestly. I did the PFL, which is something I never really used to cover, breakdowns for that. But LFA this past week, I'm starting to see that some of these spots might be easier to call than even in some UFC fights. So I'm going to be doing CFFC this weekend as well as Fury FC and then Cage Warriors to close out the year on New Year's Eve. So yeah, I am all in, Patrick. I'm all in. And it'll be nice to know these guys coming into the UFC as well, rather than being completely blind. So I'm excited about that aspect as well.
Yeah, I do that during the off week sometimes. Like over this past year, I would do an LFA or a Bellator or things like that. When there was a UFC off week, it was a lot to cover all at once in 1 week. But you could really snipe some of those opening lines, especially when it's like a pick 'em price tag. One guy is clearly superior and more proven as a fighter than his opponent, but they open it up because they have no idea. It's like minus 110 a piece. You snipe that, and then instantly within a couple of days, that line in the CFFC is like minus 500 for the guy that you bet on. So you can really clean up on that if you get the early information.
It's good for if you are sniping those lines, but personally, I don't like tracking those lines myself. I'll wait until the line is widely available on most sportsbook or even for the regional shows, right? I'll wait for it to open up on more than just one, and then I'll track that line. But perfect example of taking advantage of lines that are completely off. Main event, first LFA main event I call plus 375 underdog in the main event comes to looking like the minus 500 favorite. Absolutely torching Alfonso Leyva and then getting that liver kick KO there from Chris Brown. Those are the spots that make it even more enticing to keep doing this regional scene thing. And even though it's a little bit more of a grind, it's already paid off in the one big event that I've done since taking it on.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that content from you, and I'll try to do a lot more of that in the next year. And we do have a couple of things coming up on the calendar in between this unfortunate 4-week break from the UFC events. There are a couple of things coming. I know Risen has got some things. They've got like a collab with Bellator as well on New Year's. So I'll be looking to do some content there. But before we dive into this card, I saw you had some success last week despite the co-main event and the main event being a push. Yeah, I know, right? I saw your post. You said you kind of felt like you were in limbo with your results because you had a pretty good result, right? Weren't you at least 3 to 5 units up? But it would have been a lot more had the main event gone our way.
3.5 units is what I officially made. If the co-main event went our way, that's another 5.5 to 6 units. And then if Ankalaev came through, that would have been about 7 units. But more so on the degenerate side of things. I mean, I had Jared Gordon as kind of my anchor, and Jared Gordon by decision as my anchor to cash some of these lottery parlays. And God damn, Patrick! I would have been. It would have been nice this past
You're
week
telling me.
Gordon came.
I mean, just like untracked. The only thing that I don't track is like of course, just every pick that I choose, just on my prediction video, I'll throw them all into just like a big Hail Mary parlay, all 12 fights.
Yeah.
Just lunch money on that. If Jared Gordon would have gotten his hand raised at Magomed Ankalaev, I would have been perfect, and I would have been up like $10,000. Like
I would have same boat, dude. Same.
So I was like,
even with the Ankalaev push, like it still would have been a very big cash.
Right, with the Ankalaev push, it would have been like at least half of that, So at least 5 stacks off of like a whatever, like $10 bet. So
yeah, exactly.
Whatever, we're on track. At least we were calling them correctly. So you can't complain about profit, and these things do bounce back our way. But I want to get into that because you're a longtime fan. You've been doing this a long time from a gambling side of things. What's your feeling of the the decision controversy? I know there might be some fuckery involved, but I mean, we've been seeing this my entire life. I've been seeing prelims that go unnoticed, horrible decisions where it's like, how do they call it 30-27 unanimously for the wrong guy? But now that it's got visibility, the sport's popular, you got a rising star like Paddy Pimblett. He's doing podcasts with Dana White. Now it seems like, maybe there is some fuckery involved, but I feel like it's also just magnified as the sport has grown. Do you agree with that? Or do you, are you really like tinfoil hat about it?
No, I do kind of agree with you. Like even before the decision of the Jared Gordon fight was read, I'm like, if I were to ever get fucked by a bad decision right now, it's this fight. It's going to happen here. And of course, it ended up happening. But like there is, like you said, it is magnified now because of the name attached to it. And this is the first time we've seen a commission legitly go out there and try to make a change, right? I believe it's the Connecticut commission or whatever it was, wherever Bellator was the night before the UFC, because we got that 50-45 scorecard and the Danny Sabatello fight. And I'm a guy with money on Danny Sabatello that night. 50-45 is egregious. There's no way he should have won that 5 rounds to nothing. No way, Jose. But and then he flies overnight, takes a red eye to Vegas and scores the Paddy Pimblett fight in favor of Paddy Pimblett. And I'm not sure if you saw I'm not sure if you saw anything that Ariel talked about over the last couple of days in regards to this, but he said like he believes Doug Crosby, who's the judge in question here, wants to favor and be in the good graces of the bosses, and he believed that Danny Sabatello winning would have been a good thing for Bellator given his boisterous attitude and his Colby Covington-esque moniker. And then on the UFC side, Paddy Pimblett. UFC wants to see Paddy Pimblett win. I'll score this fight in favor of them. So there's got to be some controversy. One of the head of commissions is saying they're going to investigate it. They're looking into it.
I didn't see that. Sure.
Yeah. So there is something actually happening this time, because every week we talk about it. It's on the prelims, like you said. It's buried there. There's nothing. Nobody cares about fucking, say this weekend. Nobody cares if Cheyenne buys or Cheyenne Vlismas gets screwed on the scorecards. Nobody gives a shit. They care about Paddy Pimblett if he's involved. So
it happens all the time. And also not just the fact that the sport has grown, there's stars now that it's magnified when there's bad decisions, but now we have a bigger sample size of bad decisions, right? We've got 42 events in the year, not 16 to 20 anymore. So you're going to see these happen a lot more often. Throw Bellator in there, all of these things. And I'm not excusing bad judging, but again, this is a martial art. It's mixed martial arts. It is like a performance art. You do judge this more subjectively than a lot of other sports. So it is easy to excuse and not make those changes sometimes, because you can look into the rules and see how subjective they are, how damage is scored, how effective grappling is scored. And you're going to see this happen a lot before there's real concrete changes to it. It's very hard, but not excusing bad judging. I mean, like you said, some of these scorecards are just outright just wrong, just ridiculous. But
when there's a pattern of it, that's where it starts to become like a legit concern. And I think
you got the same guy making the same, ridiculous calls.
And not to say there have been times where Doug Crosby was the dissenting judge, but he had the correct scorecard. Like I was looking through his MMA decisions page today, and he actually scored a couple fights right that went the other way. So like, he fucks up, but he does make some right calls at times. But it does seem like his name is magnified. Sal D'Amato magnified. Chris Lee is another one who's starting to come into question. So crazy. But like you said, bounces will eventually go your way as long as you're making the right calls on a long-term perspective. So I could be sour about that Jared Gordon thing. I'm more so sour because it robbed me of those DGen parlays hitting. But I know this weekend, maybe I might get a bounce my way or something like that.
Oh, we will. And
as long as we're calling it the way it should be.
The Ankalaev draw was actually, I was thanking that we got that draw, because like second round, third round, when we saw his leg buckle, his knee buckle from those calf kicks, I thought it was done. I was like, there's no way he's going to make it to the
Yeah.
later parts of the fight. So I was lucky to get a draw for that one. Just going to push. But
I agree.
yeah,
I'm glad that you saw it as a
one.
draw. I'm glad that you saw it as a draw as well, because initially everybody was up in arms, right, saying the Ankalaev deserved to win that fight. You watch back round one, it goes either way. Honestly, I'm not mad at a Blachowicz scorecard. I'm not mad at a Ankalaev scorecard, but it's either a draw or an Ankalaev win. It is not a Blachowicz win. That's where I think you got to be wrong. Even if he wins the first 3 rounds, 100% he loses round 5, 10-8, which automatically makes it a draw.
Yeah, right. No, exactly. So, hey, on to the next. We'll get these bounces back. Hopefully we have a nice, exciting, violent card the way we did. But either way, we still have 14 fights on UFC Vegas 66. Jared Cannonier taking on Sean Strickland. Potential 5-round main event there. And, I was checking with Manpreet before. We still have all 14 of these fights on the board for us here. So hopefully they all stay intact. We are early in the week. Let me shout out the chat real fast before we get started on this one. We got Victor De Jesus in the chat. We got Daz Files, Papa Chuck in the house, Rob Lawrence, all the heavy hitters, Grateful Dude, Justin Villegas. Oh, man, all of my main guys are in the chat. Sick, he does MMA. Check out his YouTube channel. He's back uploading like a madman. We got Mushroom with the crazy giant lunches. I saw that man had like an office drawer full of like chips or something today. It was like top 25 most obese things I've ever seen in my life.
Straight savage.
But I like it. Yeah, I like it. Work hard, play hard, eat hard. We got MMA Propaholic in the house as well. Broke Native. And let's get into this. Oh, Couch Warrior, our boy. What's going on, Mike? How you doing? Let's break into this one. We got 24 live viewers in the house, and we're starting off the night with a banger, honestly. A lot of these prelims I like as like normal fight night main card fights. We got Sergey Morozov at bantamweight taking on Journey Newson. I got to say, I like Morozov here. I do have a bet on Morozov. I know in the past he did have that fight with Douglas Silva de Andrade where I think I bet on Morozov. I lost money on him. You know, he almost had that fight out of there, and Douglas Silva is tough. I like Morozov striking, his power at this weight class. His wrestling is a key path to victory over Journey Newson, who I just don't think has the skill set to hang with Morozov. I mean, both of these guys have had inconsistencies in the UFC. I think they're both 2-2 in the league so far, but drastically different level of opponents with Journey Newson just coming off of a victory over a debuting fighter in Fernie Garcia. So is there any path to victory here that would, get me off of betting Morozov, or is Morozov kind of like a clear path here? How does he falter in this fight?
This is a guy that I felt very like up and down about over his last couple fights, right? I cashed him as a dog against Khalid Taha. I'm surprised we even got an underdog line on him that night. And then I fumbled the bag as a lock of the night play on him with Douglas Silva de Andrade. And it seemed like he, sorry?
Close though.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. You almost got him out of there in that first round, and then eventually, threw the sink at him and gassed doing so, and then eventually got finished in that second round. But it seems like he fell in love with the striking a lot. Even in the Halian Paiva, the early goings of that fight, gets rocked in that first round, but then it's like, oh wait, I'm a wrestler, dog. Let me try to take this fight to the ground and try to grind it out that way. And he was able to do so. Journey Newson is still a question mark to me, though. Like I bet him against Randy Costa, knowing had that fight gotten past the 2 or 3 minute mark, we know how that would go, right? That's the story of Randy Costa's career at this point. And then he goes out there and has a great showing against Fernie Garcia as an underdog, which goes to show that people aren't really giving him the respect he deserves. I'm not saying he's a live underdog by any means in this spot, but I feel a little queasy taking that minus 280 on the Morozov side, because I think that Newson has a comfortable enough striking game to remain competitive should this strike be in the striking realm. He's a black belt in BJJ. Who knows what he'll be able to do off of his back? It's still a question mark against this level of competition, in my opinion. So for me, it's a stay away fight. If I were to take anything, maybe Morozov by decision. I think that'd be the best juice worth your squeeze, essentially. But yeah, I want to watch this fight with a keen eye and see what we get out of Journey Newson, just to bet on or against him in his next fight.
Yeah, that line went crazy. I was shocked when you just said minus 280. I didn't realize that the odds had been updated. I got him at minus 225. That's where I laid down.
A little bit more acceptable.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So just right around that 70 percentile implied probability. Minus 280, getting up there. Plus 242 on Newson. I still that would just price me out of Morozov. I would be looking towards the props. You're not liking violence here. We're getting plus 120 on the under 2.5 at bantamweight. Morozov's got power. Newsom, he's been put out before quickly by Randy Costa. He did have that nice knockout over Domingo Pilarte. You think both guys are durable enough to withstand the onslaught of each other, or you don't think Morozov finds a sub at some point? And then Morozov can gas out too. You don't think there's a late finish, at least for somebody in this fight?
I wouldn't 100% say that Morozov has a gas tank issue if we're just drawing it for that De Silva fight or that Douglas Silva, Josh fight. Because he went balls to the wall in that first round. Now, of course, you're going to gas like that. But if he goes about it the way that I think he does, and that's going to be grapple heavy, I could see this leaking into the second, third decision, essentially, right? So I prefer the over 2.5 more than anything, but I don't think I'll get to the window with it.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Morozov by points at plus 110. Not bad there. I do like some of the finish props for Morozov as well. If you're looking that way, Morozov by knockout, I saw like plus 550, plus 600 on some books. But of course, they're pricing KO and submission very high because they don't know which one he's going to get, right? You got to pick between those. Whereas just betting him inside the distance right around plus 200. Not a bad look. I think there is a big skill gap here. I think Morozov pretty much has Newson beat everywhere, but I understand your hesitation, especially after having such faith in him and he fails you. You want to take a step back and really see what he's made out of, you know what I mean? But just the drastic difference in competition level between these guys, I just think it's going to be a walk in the park for Morozov. But on the same side of that one, we just got priced out. This line, drastically moved. I saw it down maybe like minus 215 before I did the tape study, and by the time I even got through it, it was already up at minus 225 and now minus 280. Yeah, might want to just look for the props in this one. I know Propaholic is in the chat. He really likes the violence spot in here, getting plus money on the under 2.5. But yeah, maybe just to sit back and watch one if this goes. I mean, we're still on Tuesday, guys. This might go to like minus 300 for Morozov. So as he gets parlayed up, but
I'll say this, Pat, real quick. I have 9 bets on this card already.
I got a lot as well. I got a lot of money lines. This was the first one. I might end up having like 7 or 8 money lines, honestly. So it's I am in parlay rehab, by the way, as well. I didn't bring that up last time. I was parlaying like crazy for a little bit and getting like all the picks correct and having like a negative result at the end of the night from it was the UFC Orlando where Michael Johnson, kind of shit the bed on everybody there, and so did Holland. So after that, I said, okay, let me just play money lines. And last week it worked out beautifully. I didn't miss a single one. So we're gonna go back to it this week.
I got violated on that UFC Orlando card. Easily the worst card of the year for me. Horrible. But yeah, let's get it back. Let's get it back.
Yeah, exactly. So moving on to the next fight. And this one I was shocked was on the second fight of the night. This is David Dvorak taking on Manel Kape. I mean, this is two guys. Like Manel Kape was a guy that they brought in from Rizin on a pretty hefty contract. He was going to be the alternate in case Moreno or Davison Figueiredo couldn't make that first title fight. He was on standby weighing in to possibly get that title shot on a debut if worse came to fruition there. So it's odd that he's down, an exciting fighter like he is coming off of 2 back-to-back round 1 stoppages. Tell me about these flyweights, man. How do you feel about this? We do have the money line to consider here, which makes it interesting because Manel Kape is capable as he is. He's a sizable favorite here. We're looking at, he's getting up there in like the, minus 250 range, I want to say.
About last time I saw was 240.
Yeah, minus 240, minus 250, about plus 190, plus 200, creeping towards Ford Dvorak, who's super capable, but coming off of a loss to Mateusz Nicolau. So what's your feeling on this one? Is the dog kind of the play this week?
Honestly, we're going to talk about this a lot throughout this entire podcast, is like recency bias and possible market overcorrection in a sense. Going into the Nicolau fight, David Dvorak was minus 125. He was a slight favorite over Nicolau, who's very much making a name for himself in this division. I do think that he is worthy of a shot here at plus 200. He does a lot of things great. He has a great boxing game, throws in combinations. He has a ground game if he needs it. He has a nasty calf kick and leg kick that he likes to attack on the regular. Manel Kape, big power. Okay, I get it. He's versatile. He likes to throw a lot of flashy shit. He likes to jump. He likes to spin. He likes to do all that stuff. But up until those points, and up until the point he can actually flatline you, he's sometimes on the losing end of fights, right? Like, it's not often that decisions are going his way because sometimes he's just a little too caught up in trying to get the knockout. And yes, Dvorak could potentially be a little bit compromised from that Nicolau fight since he got rocked in the second round, but showed great heart, came back, tried to make a good account of himself in that third round, but seemed too compromised at the time, and Nicolau was able to get him out of there, or not get him out of the story, continue to outstrike him, beat him, win that fight by decision. But Dvorak has the tools to be the better minute winner here, has the tools to take away the explosivity of Manel Kape with his calf kicks and his leg kicks, and then open up with punches of his own. He's a no-brainer plus 200 to bet for me here. He could get starched early in this fight, but I like the tools that he brings to the table. For the most part, durable fighter, for the most part. Maybe it was just an off night with the Nicolau fight, but I'm not taking that one fight to completely write this guy off, who again was minus 125 going into that fight with Nicolau. So let's not quickly dump our guys to the side. Don't hop off the train just because of one loss, even if it's to the top of the division, like some of the top guys in the division. Dvorak has value. Dvorak by decision. Dvorak straight up, I'm happy.
I mean, how frightening is it that Manel Kape is 1-4 in decisions at flyweight, right?
Right.
I mean, that's terrifying. Because he is an explosive guy. He's got a lot of finishes, both KO and subs. He's capable everywhere. But again, one of these guys who could grapple his way to a victory and just chooses to strike, look for the exciting moment. He's got such good in and out movement too. Like he could be such a great volume striker should he choose to go that route at some point, but he hasn't done it yet. And even in Risen, if you watch this tape, like he's very open to just taking like the jiu-jitsu off of his back route and just kind of playing around. But he's so capable when he wants to be. And he's had a high level of competition, both overseas and in the U.S. now. It just sucks. I've bet on him all 4 of his appearances in the UFC so far. I've gone 2-2 in those, just like he's gone 2-2. So I'm going to sit back and try to break this tie on Manel Kape another time. But I was so excited for him to make his debut in the UFC. He's such a fun character, like a shit talker. You don't see it a whole lot now in the States, but hoping he gets kind of a rise back to the title. He's an exciting guy, and if he starts putting it together, 29 years old in this weight class is a little bit different than 29 in other weight classes, right? Like he's kind of pushing the upper boundaries of like his prime here, so he's got to start putting it together. But I do agree that all the value is on David Dvorak. As far as the violence goes, how do you feel about this one? Both guys are equal opportunity finishers. It's a flyweight fight, though. That always makes me want to look towards the overs for sure. Like, I rarely ever play the unders in flyweight fights unless one guy's got like a gas tank problem or they're very low level. At the high level, I tend not to. How do you feel on that?
Kind of the same, but Manel Kape is kind of the exception to that rule, right? If he wins, it's likely coming by knockout, and he's been able to do that in the vast majority of his fights. So that's why it has me hesitant in terms of playing a total here. I think the large majority of value on this fight is the Dvorak money line, plus 200. I got plus 205 earlier today, but I love it. I love it. Hopefully he pulls off the victory here, because I know a lot of people are going to be writing him off this week, I think, because they think he's just going to go out there and get KO'd off the top. But like, you got to open your mind up a little bit more than that and look at the possibilities and paths that Dvorak has, and he has the paths.
Yeah, and just look at the fact that he's been durable thus far, and only been knocked out like one time, I believe. He was knocked down in his last fight, but I don't know. And you're not getting much of a discount, right? Like, don't get greedy and try to go Dvorak by points, because you're only getting like 90 cents, $1 more for him by points. The bookies are all over that. Just get the underdog price. You're already getting a nice line on it. So I do agree with that. I think Manel Kape wins as a pick personally. I think he does find a way to pull this off, but the value's on David Dvorak. There's no way he should be implied at like 33%. So yeah, I agree with you. We got Eric Betts fights in the house. What's going on, Eric? How you doing? 2 of the best dudes. Maybe one of them. I wouldn't count myself in that, but
you're too humble. You're too humble.
We got Effie in the house. Everybody go check out the Any Action Sportscast. He was actually at the event last week and rocking the Patty Pimblett wig as well. So I wonder who he bet on. He did have a winning night as well. He says, didn't Kape piss hot recently too? He did. He got flagged for an oral steroid Turinabol, which is, most guys use that. They do have a better test for it these days, so they got to be a little more careful in the offseason when they use it. But he used to be able to use that. You would use test suspension and Turinabol, and all the athletes for like any major sport could pass within like a week's time. You pass your tests. But then they got crazy, and that's when they got John Jones with it, and they flagged him. And now they're talking about picograms and all this nonsense. Yeah. So Manel Kape will now be tested a lot more regularly because they found the irregularity. So he took a 6-month suspension, and they just have to they test him all the time in the offseason now. So
what are the positive effects of Turinabol? Like, how does that impact a fighter?
It's just like synthetic testosterone, like any other, good steroids. So muscle mass, less body fat, stuff like that, strength, explosivity, whatever.
And just quickly touching on Kape one more time, by knockout, plus 160, much better than the minus 240, given that that's usually his path to victory.
Yeah,
so
I like that. Yeah, and he's who's the ones, because he faced Zalgas last time, and he got Ode Osborne before that. So yeah, it's been a while. It's been a whole year since we've seen him fight. So excited to see him back in there. But yeah, moving on to short notice fight here. Rinat Fakhretdinov coming off of his debut in the UFC successfully over Michailidis. He's taking on short notice replacement Bryan Battle at welterweight. And this is Battle's second fight at the weight class. He did have that, kind of scary looking weight cut on the scales, but made no difference. He rehydrated, got out there and knocked out Takashi Sato with that vicious head kick in less than a minute. So this is a spot where I am going to take Fakhretdinov here, and I think I will bet him at the line because it was close to a pick on price tag. You're getting underdog slightly price on Bryan Battle. A short notice fight, that's already a red flag against him. Second fight at welterweight, I still haven't seen him extended out, in a fight because he got that flash KO over Sato. Looked great, but how was his gas tank at this new weight class, after that? Fakhretdinov is a guy who we know is going to go for the grappling, use his strength, maul Bryan Battle to the floor, and we've at least seen him go 3 rounds and maintain that game plan. Plus, he's got the power, too. We saw him in the UAE Warriors destroy Eric Spicely, which, a lot of people are going to do that if you're UFC caliber, but still pretty impressive. He could hang on the feet. I'm not overly impressed with the Rinat Fakhretdinov striking, but I don't think he's going to make that really matter too much. I think he's going to take Bryan Battle down, just grapple with him. And there's a chance Bryan Battle could pull something off, but overall, I just think he's going to get smothered for 3 rounds. How do you feel about this one? Do you have faith in welterweight Bryan Battle to come back here and perform well again?
I sure hope so. I'm a Bryan Battle fan, man. I love his style. I love how he uses his cardio as a weapon, similar to Billy Quarantillo this past weekend. Right? He endures the early onslaught and then comes back and really starts to put his foot on the gas. And I think he can do that here against Rinat. I don't think Rinat is like he seemed like such a mythical creature coming into the UFC. Some of the pictures you see of the guy, but I don't think his skills totally add up to that scary image that people have. Level of competition on the regional scene, very sketchy, very, very sketchy outside of the Eric Spicely fight. And there was one more UFC veteran that he beat, but all those guys way past their primes, very, they're much a huge liability in terms of the chin and durability at that time, which is why he's able to get those guys out of there. And then the Michailidis fight, he can grapple Michailidis to the ground, and Michailidis, a very poor cardio game himself. My question is, how does Rinat respond when a guy like Bryan Battle is stuffing takedowns or getting back to his feet right away and then chipping away at him from distance, similar to what he did against Trishan Gore? He ate some bombs from Trishan Gore. Face obviously showed the damage, but he still put together the game that the judges saw, and they're like, okay, this guy deserved the win. He was still landing more. He was landing more damage, landing more often, all that good stuff. And then he has the grappling of his own in his back pocket in case he needs it. If he needs his jiu-jitsu, finds himself in a compromising position, I think he'll be able to get out and on top of Rinat in most of these spots. And potential that Rinat might have some gas tank issues of his own going up against a guy that puts up resistance similar to Bryan Battle. So I'm going to look at the round 3 prop. I got his money line already. I do ultimately think he wins by decision, but I'm a sucker for those 4-digit, 4-figure plus money round props. And if I'm able to get one here for Bryan Battle in round 3, I'm definitely going to go for it. But battle by decision, battle money line plus 112, I think I got. Love that spot.
Yeah, it's like that now. Yeah, I mean, Bryan Battle, I love how busy he is. You mentioned he was kind of like Billy Q with using his, just making it a war of attrition, just throwing enough out there to make your opponent kind of this guy's not tired. He doesn't stop moving or fighting through fatigue. What do? I do like that quality quite a bit. Hoping we see that from Bryan Battle at 170. I didn't really have high hopes from him coming off of the Ultimate Fighter, honestly, but he's really, every single fight, he's proven himself more and more that he's somebody to watch out for at the weight class. And yeah, he looked terrible on the scales. He looked like an absolute skeleton, but he came out there and did what he had to do and got the W against Sato, which was a huge step up in competition at a new weight class. So awesome to see. I do agree with you with Rinat Fakhretdinov, where I was disappointed. So it was a good performance against Michailidis for whatever that means. But as gassed as Michailidis was, I mean, weren't you surprised that he didn't finish Michailidis somewhere in the stretch of that fight? You know what I mean? He played it very safe. I don't know if he was gassed himself or what the deal was, but he could not find the choke. He didn't really go for anything to finish the fight. I mean, but round 2, Michailidis was like a corpse. So, I mean, what was the deal with that? Do you think there's cardio issues for Rinat?
I do, but I also think it kind of goes to show that his skill set is not what most people make it out to be, just because he's an OV and coming from that side of the world, right?
Yeah,
he has a shiny record, but audit that record and you'll be like, why is he fighting a 3-3 guy when he's already 16 fights into his career or something like that? Like I saw some very sketchy records on his
it was terrible
on his record, right? So other than the UFC veterans that he fought who were already way past his prime. So yeah, I think this is going to be his first true like UFC level test against a guy that's actually close to his prime or closer to his prime. And also on the battle side, the reason I don't want to go deeper on him here is what if the weight cut is actually a hindrance to his cardio, right?
Yeah.
That is a question mark. That is legitimate. That is valid. But I think that if he can even bring close to that game of what he used to have up a weight class, this line is going to look like a goddamn steal. So I still want to get some action down on it. Not as deep as I would want to, but this will be a good showcase to let us know where he's at.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So moving on to kind of a similar spot there. And what's up to Johnny K Picks in the house going on? My guy, I think we're going to do a fight companion this weekend. I think him and Cody from Blood Money MMA Bets have something cooking. Maybe We'll watch the fights together. We'll see about that. Want to do something for the last card of the year. Maybe get our guy Lou Betya in there as well. Speaking of those,
shout out Lou.
Yes, speaking of those, triple and quadruple digit plus money bets you like on those round props. You know, as Lou would say, why would you choose Brian Battle in round 2 when round 3 pays more? So
I wish I went to the Billy Quarantillo fight with that goddamn thinking. God damn it! Right? Like just knowing that he could possibly finish in round 2. Fuck.
It was like that, and who else? Chris Curtis, similar, another round 2 guy, kind of came out of nowhere.
Yep.
I feel like there was one more on there too, but so such a fun card. This card has got some catching up to do with that one. Hopefully, it excites us, and we do have
the potential.
It does, and we've got Rafa Garcia up next, taking on kind of a similar matchup here, right? Where Rafa Garcia is solidified in the UFC so far, not overly successful, but at least shows some good wrestling, some good pace and pressure. He's taking on Maheshate, Chinese prospect, 23 years old at this point. And he's coming off of defeating Steve Garcia the way that you would want to in a debut, flatlining him in round 1. That's kind of how you want to handle Steve Garcia if you want to, make an impact and prove that you belong. So that was a pretty nice counter right. And what was even more impressive was Maheshate was like a 6-1 underdog on the Contender Series. So he had to battle back in rounds 2 and rounds 3. And then he's got the flash KO potential, as we saw, against somebody at least the level of Steve Garcia. What I worry about is his wrestling defense, because that's going to be tested against Rafa Garcia. The gas tank as well. Rafa's going to test that as well. Is this a spot where I'm getting kind of a nice deal on a guy who's at least UFC caliber at like the mid-level in Rafa Garcia? Or what should I be? I don't remember as much because I did research Maheshate for that season of the Contender Series, but I don't remember what I saw from his regional scene tape. Does he have any good defensive wrestling?
There's really only one fight that I was able to find pre-Contender Series of his, and he got grappled to the mat. Yeah, like this guy.
That's good news.
He was struggling very much, but that's also when he was 19. Now he's a couple years older now, has some more experience under his belt, training with the guys over there at Kill Club FC. Who knows how much that will improve a fighter that young in their career still. So that's kind of the big, big caution sign going into this fight. Garcia should be the one to go out there and imply his game plan. The guy is so good at, mixing in his striking with his grappling, getting guys to the ground and grinding them out, has great durability, has a good enough gas tank. But if Maheshate has just made that incremental improvement between fights here, he could knock out Rafa Garcia. He could keep this fight standing and pick him apart from distance because he does so well from that distance and that space if you're able to give it to him. Garcia's not the type to just settle out on that outside range and let you enjoy it, but Maheshate could pull it off. So I was interested in Rafa closer to like evens, maybe even small plus money if possible, but him at -130, -140, this is more so of a pass for me now. I still think he wins. Garcia by decision, but I'm not just so ready to go in on that -130 myself.
We're seeing, Garcia -136 on Bet Online right now, plus 116 for Maheshate. I did lay down a money line bet on Garcia at -116. So not too much better, but still saving like $20 there on the unit. So I do like him to win. Man, what do you think about some of these finish props though? Like what if Rafa Garcia pulls this guy into deep water, goes for a submission? He's known for like club and sub victories. Plus 550 Garcia. I'd kind of want more than that, honestly. I mean, he does have 8 submissions, so they're not totally screwing us with that, but it just seems like it's like a certain circumstance where Rafa usually lands something devastating on the feet, just enough to grab them to the ground and choke them out. Kind of like he did against, who was that recently?
Jesse Ronson.
Jesse Ronson.
Canadian.
Yep, exactly. I was going to say that. Yep. I knew it was a fellow Canadian.
Before that fight, he was on a 5 decision streak, essentially. Garcia, I'm talking about here. In terms of his finishing abilities, it seemed to be more so based on the lower level of competition he was fighting earlier in his career. Now that he's fighting better guys, it's harder for him to get these guys out of there. Jesse Ronson, as much as I love the guy, I think he's past his prime. I don't think he was UFC level at that time. Jakar Close, couldn't get past him, couldn't put him away. Maheshate, if there is any finishing left in Rafa Garcia, he could finish a kid like Maheshate, in my opinion. But I don't have the confidence in him. Nothing of his recent form, other than the Jesse Ronson fight. I just don't know if he'll be able to put it on Maheshate here.
All right, so we're on the same side of that one. Obnoxious American MILF in the house. What's going on? What's up with the new format? It's too distracting. I missed the old one. Yeah, I know I added us in a little cage here. I usually have just our side-by-side, but man, my head looks so fat in that one. I didn't like it after a while. Looked like I had a giant biscuit. I'm like, guys, am I really that fat? I was watching the replays, putting timestamps in. I was like, oh, man, I can't do it. Let's try it here. Let's see what we can do here. Oh, God, that's so. Oh, God. Damn, you just have to put up with it. I don't know. I can't look at myself, Manpreet. I'm sorry.
I hate looking at myself too. Trust me.
What's up to the MMA prodigy? Excited to hear the new main event breakdown. I think Sean's going to get knocked out so recently it affects him here. We'll get into it. And check out MMA Prodigy. That kid's doing good work as well on the YouTube. I'm certainly subscribed and maybe do some work with him as well. We might get a stream going. He's got some good opinions. So moving on to the next fight, which we have. A very exciting one. This is one of these spots where I'm just like, it doesn't even seem like a prelim fight to me. We've got Said Nurmagomedov taking on Said Kahkramonov at bantamweight. 2 guys in their prime at bantamweight. You got Said, who's a little bit more solidified at the UFC level, not the type of smothering wrestling Dagestani, but more of a stylish striker, but some grappling in his back pocket. And you've got Kahkramonov, who's been nothing short of impressive in his appearances so far. Short notice bout against Trevin Jones. So he took on a very good power puncher in Trevin Jones and just really outstruck him, made him very hesitant, and then took him to the mat when he needed to win round 3 and choked him out at the very final second. So good finishing potential. It translates late in a fight, which I like. And then he flipped the script on Ronnie Lawrence as an underdog. And I totally called that one. I got a bet on Kahkramonov as a slight underdog that night. And he scored like 10 takedowns out of maybe like 15 or so attempts. And it was just super impressive. Good gas tank. And he's proved that at 27 years old, this kid is a problem. But this is a big step up in competition. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this one. The money line has kind of been back and forth, almost at a complete pick-em here. I think maybe, I've seen both sides of this. I've seen some bookies where minus 120 is on Nurmagomedov. Some bookies where minus 120 is moved to Kahkramonov. It's been trading pick-em price tag. Pretty much a 50-50 fight from a gambling perspective. Who do you have in this one?
I was right there with you on the Kahkramonov over Ronnie Lawrence spot. I think people were just overlooking him because of that short notice fight against Trevin. But the guy has skill, man. And the word on the street is he is a very good wrestler. And it obviously showed off in that fight. The fight that kind of made me respect him a lot was the Umar Nurmagomedov fight. I believe that took place in WSOF, and he was a huge underdog in that fight. But he did like the whole Tsarukyan Makhachev thing, where even though he lost, his stock very much rose that night, and he did get knocked out by another kid after that, Pipe Vargas, I think it was. But I think that's one of those just like blips on the radar, essentially. We saw in his last fight, we saw in the Trevin Jones fight, even on short notice, this kid is dangerous, man. Very good grappling, very good wrestling. I think he's definitely going to challenge Nurmagomedov in those spots here. Nurmagomedov, obviously, we all know that he's more so of a striking Dagestani more so than a wrestling, but he can obviously get that wrestling going if he needs it. But I think he's going to be looking to keep this fight upright, looking to use his flashy style, his flashy kicks. But he does fight close to the level of his competition at times. And that's why I took a big shot on Cody Stamann as a plus 200 underdog on him a couple fights ago. And obviously it went up in smoke within seconds. But if you can extend this guy, we've seen him, have tough times against guys like Justin Scoggins and Hani Barcelos, very good guys. And I believe that much of Kahkramonov too. As his potential starts to arrive within him and he actually starts achieving it, I do think that we'll see a very high level shit out of this kid. And I think he beats Nurmagomedov. I don't want to say easily, but I think that the takedowns, the relentless pressure, not giving Nurmagomedov the space to breathe and to get comfortable at that space so that he can get his flashy kicks off. Kahkramonov's not going to let him do that at all. He is going to be on him like white on rice. And I think that the winner of this fight should force the loser to drop the Saeed in their name. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't disagree with anything you said, and I think that is a certain possibility of this fight. I do lead Nurmagomedov slightly just because of the level of competition, and I do like his ability to cause just, kind of round-changing damage. He's so accurate with those strikes. He's not throwing spinning techniques. He's just throwing them just to throw them. He's throwing them to certainly cause damage. I mean, he'll go from landing a spinning back kick to the body right into another spinning back fist to the head, and he lands everything with a very good precision. So I like that in this spot, but I do worry about round 3 because there's been a lot of spots now where we've seen Saeed look very good in round 1, give up round 2, and then round 3 is kind of a toss-up, right? Does he have the space to spin? Does he want to use his wrestling well? Does he tend to gas out? I mean, he's been facing top-level guys like D. Silva, De Andrade, but that round 3 was close, and I was pretty tied up on the Nurmagomedov side in that one, and was lucky to have made it out. So I can see why this is an even money play here. I do like Kahkramonov's ability to, like we said at the top, even show that he can have fight-ending, exchanges late in the fight. I do like that. I just think Nurmagomedov has this kid on the striking side of things vastly, and there's still something to be said in his back pocket about what the grappling looks like, at any point in the fight. I think there's still some tricks up Nurmagomedov's sleeve that he's not showing us because he's such a good striker. But it'll be a prove me spot. So I'm staying off of this from a betting perspective. I've decided it's just really, really close because I don't disagree with any of your points for Kahkramonov. I think Nurmagomedov could pull this off, and I think the bookies have this right at a dead even. People are going to bet both sides. They're going to collect the VIG, and we're all going to they're going to make their money either way. So, this is a spot where I just want to sit back and watch as a fan. But as far as this going to the distance, do you like that play on here? I'm not even sure what that's lined at.
Yeah, I'm leading Kahkramonov by decision here. Nurmagomedov, tough to put away, very durable,
over
very hard to hit
-2.5,
clean.
-175 for the over 2.5.
A little too much juice there for me personally, but I'm leaning Kahkramonov. I think I'm getting a great line on it too, honestly.
Yeah, that's not bad. I wonder where this line's going to go. It probably will stay a dead even pick him going into the unless some casual money comes in on the Nurmagomedov line, they assume it's another cousin or something like that. Maybe they'll
Russian tax.
Yeah, maybe they'll tax it and start parlaying him up. They're going to be very, very disappointed with his game plan if they do that. But so on slightly different sides of that one, but not that much there. We got Uncle Wheezy in the house. This is a damn good card to end the year. Exactly. And let's move on to something equally as exciting, in my opinion. We got Julian Marquez versus Deron Winn at middleweight. And when I saw this fight lined on the bookies, like a couple of weeks back, before I even did the research, I'm like, this line seems like it should be a little bit wider, right? We've got a giant in, Marquez compared to the little midget Daniel Cormier looking Deron Winn. This will look like, this will be like maybe 10, 11 years ago when Pat Barry took on Stefan Struve. I feel like at the weigh-ins, it's going to look like that a little bit. But then you got to go back and realize that Marquez, even though he's going to be a complete size bully here, the guy does get taken down quite a bit, right? Maki Pitolo controlled him. He's been taken down in pretty much every fight except for his past couple where he defeated Sam Alvey in a layup of a fight, and he got the shit kicked out of him by my guy, Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez. So those fights were over before they even needed to get to the wrestling mat. But before that, he's always overcoming adversity early, only to push the pace and get a late finish. I do like Marquez here, though, and I will have a moneyline bet on him in this fight. Right around that -160 price tag is where I got him at. I'm sure he's going up towards -170, -180. I see a path for Deron Winn, though, if he can get the wrestling going and just be successful with that. But I just think that he's going to be very, very hard-pressed to control Marquez from getting up, and even that might wear him up. So this might be a live betting spot on Marquez like after round 1. That might be a way to play this if you don't trust Marquez, but I just think Marquez is going to find a neck eventually in this fight. There's going to be a desperate takedown from Deron Winn, and I think Marquez locks up a submission and ends this fight. How do you feel about this one? Are you on the Deron Winn side of this?
Man, this fight has me feeling like the Jairzinho Rosenstrike fight from the other week, where I'm like, if it gets past a little bit, maybe Dawkins is a little live in this spot. And it feels like here, like where Marquez should be able to kill this guy without too much issue. But then I think about the Maki Patola fight a little bit, and I see him getting taken down 5 times by a lesser wrestler. And Duran Winn makes up for his size deficiency by going out there and landing takedowns and just controlling these guys. And it's been harder to do it against higher levels of competition, but I feel like he can get Marquez down here and grind him out. But you nailed it. I think the best way to go about it with Marquez is taking either inside the distance pre-fight or the live line after round 1. You're likely going to get a better line there for him rather than taking that minus 170 at the on the money line. Like, I just think that's a little bit wide for how gaping his wrestling game seems to be at times. Sure, he has a sneaky choke game and jiu-jitsu game, but what if this is the night where Duran Winn can wrestle effectively for 15 minutes and not really have any issues? So I have no bet on this. I haven't bet Duran Winn. I don't want to bet Duran Winn, but if people force my hand by pushing him up to like plus 180, plus 200, I might have to do it. But as of right now, I'm good with sitting pretty. Too much volatility in this matchup for me personally. It should be as easy as Marquez by murder, but it's MMA, dog. Anything can happen. I'm good with just sitting off the
I'm going to be yelling at my TV. I'm going to be yelling at my TV watching my bet go up in flames as Duran Winn is biting at Marquez's ankles and somehow, just climbing all over him. Is there any finishing potential for Duran Winn in this spot, do you think, or does it have to be a decision? Does he have to out-wrestle him for 2 rounds out of 3?
Man, we've seen the durability of Marquez take a hit over the last couple fights, so I wouldn't be surprised if Duran.
But it's RoboCop Rodriguez, right?
I know, but
is Duran Winn gonna? What if Duran Winn goes in there and pieces him up just like Rodriguez did? What if that happens? What if it's like even worse?
Well, what I was about to say is I think maybe he like fakes a level change and then comes over with the right hand or an uppercut or something and just flatlines Julian Marquez. Like, it's possible. I personally think it's win by decision. That's, I think, his best path to victory. But man, I wouldn't count it out seeing Marquez's recent form.
Dude, Duran Winn getting like an overhand right on Marquez would be like him dunking a basketball at this point. Like, that's what it would look like. He's probably should just practice on dunking a basketball if he wants to train for this fight, possibly, He beat
a guy that's bigger than Julian Marquez. I mean, maybe not as talented. Yeah, and maybe not as talented, but he still beat a guy bigger than him. It's not out of the realm of possibility, my friend.
Yeah, but shout out to Mushroom. He nailed this. Marquez inside the distance seems like the smart play if you're on the Marquez side. He's never once won a fight by decision. It's all been inside the distance. That's like a plus 100. So easy way to chop down that money line if you're on the Marquez side. I'm trying to stay away from getting fancy with things. So even though I do like that and I agree with it, I'm still on this money line instead. So God, I mean, look, it is going to look like Stefan Struve and Pat Barry, though, honestly. Go rewatch that fight from 10 years ago. It's going to look just like that, the weigh-ins. I can't wait for it. So you're having me regret this bet already. I'm glad I got your fresh opinion on that. Now I'm sweating that one.
I could be completely off myself, but I just like being a little bit more cautious nowadays in terms of taking the chalk and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But moving on to another fun fight, and lo and behold, I have a money line bet on this one as well. I'm fairly confident in this one, Lock. This is Jake Matthews taking on Matthew Semelsberger at welterweight. I'll let you kick this one off, but right now, I mean, the money line has kind of climbed a bit from where I got it. I got minus 225 on Jake Matthews just to spoil that pick, but right now he's climbing up to what, like minus 260 at this point. You're getting plus 220 or so on Matt Semelsberger. One guy coming up, you talked about recency bias earlier in the show. We got Jake Matthews looking amazing, pulling a page out of Andre Fiallo's book and knocking him out. And then you got Semelsberger not looking so great, getting pieced up by, little Alex Morono. So a little bit of recency bias for and against each guy here, but I am, pretty confident in Jake Matthews. Give me the path to victory for Semelsberger, though.
He's gotten away a lot with his physicality. I mean, the guy's a big dude. He's very athletic. I mean, I think he has I could be off on this, but I believe he has a football background as well. But he brings that power and aggressiveness into the cage with him. And that's why it's hard for a lot of guys to deal with him. Usually goes out there and starches people, right? The Martin Sano fight takes him seconds to knock him out. Jason Witt, same thing there. But then we see him get extended in the AJ Fletcher fight, and we saw some good things there. He gave up the first round, gave up the takedown, couldn't get back to his feet. Second and third rounds, he pieces him up, gets his own grappling going as well. Like, he is a solid all-around fighter. It's just, can he match the experience and the talent and even the improvements that we've been seeing from Jake Matthews over his last couple of fights? I don't think so, but you nailed it. We talked about it earlier about the market overcorrection and recency bias and all that. You got Jake Matthews going in as an underdog against Andre Fialho, and now here he is, a massive favorite over a guy like Matthew Semelsberger, who, I think he has the tools to be an issue here, just with his athleticism, possibly stuffing takedowns, landing some strikes of his own. Yeah, the Jake Matthews striking game looks like it's improving, and it looks like he's doing great things with it. But like, Semelsberger is still a big dude to crash the pocket against, and a powerful dude to crash the pocket against. So maybe he runs himself into a counter. Maybe Semelsberger gets his own grappling going. I do think Matthews is the side. I think he wins this fight, but the line is starting to get out of hand. Yeah, I mean, minus 225, I don't mind that. Minus 260, minus 250. Like, to me, that's getting a little bit out of whack here, and we got to give Semelsberger a little bit more respect.
Yeah, I mean, I hopped on that at minus 225, put 2.5 units on it. I like that play a lot. I just think it's more of a complete game than Semelsberger has seen before, right? You're saying he did have those couple of flash knockouts that were awesome, Jason Witt and Martin Sano on short notice. But other than that, yeah, he was able to deal with kind of like a green to MMA guy and AJ Fletcher, deal with the grappling there. He was able to kind of show some good cardio and resolve in that fight, coming back when he needed to later in the fight. He also dealt with some striking from Chaos Williams as well, kind of dealt with that, kept it at bay without getting pieced up and knocked out. But has he dealt with like a complete game altogether is my question, So that's kind of what I think I see out of Jake Matthews. Something, a kid who's 28 years old in Jake Matthews and already had like 16 UFC fights, certainly forged by the flames of the UFC and just learning at an accelerated pace. I think it's coming together in his prime here, and I'm trusting in him to just bring together a complete game and, pick apart the holes in Semelsberger, who I think I kind of saw some of the ceiling of Semelsberger in his last fight against Alex Morono, who Morono is really good. He's always going to be underrated just based on, his appearance and his level of competition in the UFC. But I picked him in that fight, and he did what he needed to do against Semelsberger and almost got the job done against Ponzinibbio last week, too. That was impressive up until the very end. Yeah, I was really kicking myself for not betting Morono. I think I even texted Brady, DFS by the numbers, that I was like, it was like round 2. I'm like, man, I'm so pissed I didn't pull the trigger. And then right as I think Brady opened it, he got knocked out. I'm like, well, never mind. I'm glad I didn't pick him.
Yeah, no,
gods have saved me again.
I was on the pawn side and I was ready to rip up my ticket, man. I was so glad that he came back. That was a bad bet on my part, man. I'm a big Morono guy myself. I've had him as a lock of the night play, a dog of the night play. Like, I love the guy. I know his style is not the prettiest for the eyes, but he's out there getting the dubs, moving forward, taking punishment, but dishing out even more. And I think that fight adds to the stock of Matt Semelsberger on the flip side here, right? Like, it makes that loss to Morono not look so bad, because we just saw Morono go out there and do it to a high level guy like Santiago. So that all that package together, I'm passing on Matthews, but I do think he wins this fight.
Yeah, I'm very confident in him, but if this money line goes past minus 260, minus 250, I'm not as I wouldn't load up too much on it. But what about the finishing potential for either guy here? The under at a welterweight fight, under 2.5 plus 120-ish. How do you feel about that one? We've seen Semelsberger survive some grappling exchanges, but not somebody on the level of Jake Matthews, in my opinion. We've seen him survive on the feet for sure. He can handle against power threats. Do you think Semelsberger needs to have just like a fight-ending moment to win this fight most of the time, or do you think he could outpoint his way to a victory here?
I think the most likely path here is going to be Matthews by decision. I do think we see him go back to his roots of grappling. Like, that's where you see him do a lot of his work during his original run. Yeah, like, he gets these guys to the ground, and he's not a super proficient submission specialist, right? Like, he's not often locking up that submission. He's grinding these guys out. And I think we'll see that defensive grappling here from Semelsberger to see this fight go into the judges' scorecards. So yeah, I think if there is a finish, probably comes from the Semelsberger side. But I'm thinking decision for Matthews here.
Yeah, at worst, I'm hoping with a bet on Matthews and biased here, I'm hoping that we see, at worst case scenario, we're like, wow, Semelsberger is better than I thought he was in a loss. Jake Matthews maybe not as great as we thought he was in a win, you know. So I'm hoping that's the worst case scenario I've got to deal with. But
this was a dude. Matthews was a kid when coming into the UFC. I'm sure you remember this. The potential that everybody gave this kid, like championship potential, is literally what these people are talking about earlier in his MMA career and early UFC career. Hasn't maintained that, but I think he's starting to become that, like, between top 20 to top 15 guy, keeping the gas bags and the tomato cans out of the top 15. Essentially, we'll see if Semelsberger passes the test here. I don't think he will, though.
Well, he ran into those, like a lot of the guys that are always, I mean, there's so many potential future champions when they're young that come in.
Yeah.
And now with the Contender Series and them kind of allowing these younger guys to come in between 18 and 23, they used to not do that a lot of the time, but now they're letting it happen. You know, a lot of them are going to fail. Most of them are going to fail because they run into guys way too soon, right? Like Jake Matthews ran into Kevin Lee when he was in his prime, basically, like right around that 2015, 2016 time frame, ran into him. And then recently he ran into Sean Brady, you know, who's looked amazing. So there's always
Rodriguez run into Frankie Edgar.
You streak together like these 4 or 5 wins, and they give you that big step up, and they just dust you, and now you're back to, all right, let me get another 4 fights, and it takes years to accomplish that. So, you know, it's very tough to be one of these guys that skyrockets to the top, like a Chimaev or something.
Yeah, at least Matthews, I think he's asserted himself as a UFC lifer at this point. Like I don't think he'll ever lose 3 fights in a row until he becomes, like, 34, 35 years old, when he starts to slow down. And he's carved out a solid spot for himself on the roster. Credit to him.
Yeah, it's exciting. Shout out to Jenna Marie, one of my like 5 female followers, the only one that shows her face, the certified gem of MMA Twitter. What's going on, Jenna? And saying hi to Mushroom. And everybody's excited that there's a woman in the chat. See this? Everybody's buzzed. Everybody's just getting super excited. We got Papa.
I personally only knew about the one. Who was it? Bay, what's her name? God, I forgot her name. Minnie Bay, Minna Bay.
Minnie Khabib?
No. Shit. People know who I'm talking about. There's like one other female in this space. Mina Bay, I think, is her.
Yeah, shout her out in the name all the female followers in the
there's only a couple,
chat,
right?
Guys. Yeah, I know you dirty pervs know all of them too. just start listing them off for me. All right. Moving on. Speaking of, actually, that's a good segue into the one female fight of the card.
Perfect.
Women's strawweight bout. Women's 115 between Cheyenne Vlismas and Corey Mckenna. Striker versus grappler, is that too simplified here? I know Cheyenne Vlismas does have some ground skill as well. She's been working on her defensive wrestling after getting embarrassed by Montserrat Ruiz. We got Corey Mckenna. Despite her, short measurables and reach and height, she looks like a little leprechaun sometimes, and she went in there against Miranda Granger and Von Fluter in round 2 last time out. So, again, Cheyenne Vlismas, somebody who has not been in the UFC in like a year. So, I'm not exactly sure why that was, but maybe she had some bouts fall off. I'm not quite sure. Maybe you know more of that than I do, Locke. Why has she not been in the UFC in like a year's time?
I heard she had some sort of medical issue that she's cleared up now, but also that's when the whole fucking JP Bays thing was going down as well. I think she just wanted to kind of disappear and get off the grid over there in Georgia. Okay,
gotcha. And I mean, I'm very impressed with Cheyenne Vlismas. The last time out, she was racking up over triple-digit significant strikes over, I think that was Mallory Martin in her last fight. Corey Mckenna certainly always struggles with that distance striker, right? Even Elise Reed, somebody of that caliber, who's not even near the caliber of striker of Cheyenne Vlismas, she struggled against that until she was able to crash the pocket and get the wrestling going. Minus 200 on Cheyenne Vlismas here as a favorite. Is that about right, or could we go wider with that? Is that too wide? How do you feel about the odds in this fight?
I think they could be wider, but I don't like. I went from possibly making Vlismas my lock of the night play to just having the 2-unit play on her now. Like the only concern that I have is what she looks like when she gets taken down conventionally, not head and arm schoolyard bullying like Montserrat Ruiz did to her, but actually being taken down. And how urgent is she in terms of getting back to her feet? I think her takedown defense is good enough to keep this fight upright for the majority of the fight. She stuffed 4 solid takedowns from Mallory Martin, who I believe on paper is probably a better wrestler than Corey Mckenna. We'll find out this weekend, but I think we'll see Mckenna also chase the takedowns more than Mallory did that night, because I do think that Vlismas will light her up on the feet. I do think she's the much better striker. She moves very well, even when she's on her back foot. She knows when to crash forward with that blitz attack and then, pivot back out and then get back into range. And I think McKenna's going to very much struggle to get this fight to the ground. And that's my concern. When and inevitably when she does, what is the urgency like from Vlismas? Because I don't want to lose this fight with her having no urgency in terms of getting off her back and trusting her jiu-jitsu too much. Like I don't want to get caught up in that. She should win this fight. She should outstrike her. She should win this fight by decision. But let's see how she deals with that style of Corey Mckenna.
You're not enticed by like a knockout prop for Cheyenne Vlismas, as physical as she is. Do you go back to the well after the Gloria de Paula flash KO? Cheyenne Vlismas by knockout plus 500 on Bet Online. There's got to be maybe when FanDuel opens that up, maybe it'd be like plus 750.
McKenna looks durable though, man. Like it seems like Elise Reed, like
doesn't look durable to me.
Elise Reed, a lot of people don't want to give her the respect, but she's like a legit like Taekwondo like styled striker where she can just put all of her punches right. Like she's a hard hitter for that division. I'll put it this way. Yeah. And Corey McKenna ate all of her shots like nothing, and that's kind of my curiosity here is, can Vlismas replicate that? How cleanly she was able to hit McKenna? And does she have the power? I don't know if she has the power. The Gloria DePaula thing was, circumstantial, right? Like she caught her on the way up, and we were wondering if it was a DQ possibly because of how close she was to the ground still. But she wasn't on the ground, and she got that knockout. I don't know if we'll get that same situation in this spot.
Oh, we got Nick Sisson liking this as well. The Vlismas inside the distance.
Ooh.
Not bad, not bad. We'll see.
I like the money line. Like if she does look that good to the point that she knocks out McKenna, the minus 200 is going to look fucking like taking candy from a baby.
Yeah, and along those lines with Vlismas's grappling, like she did show like good, at least circling off the cage pretty well. Great balance, on one leg, working her way with strikes to got back to range and get her back off the cage, which really is what you have to do to stop the takedown from Poppins, right? Like you have to get your back off the cage because she has to kind of ram herself into you on the cage and try to scoop that body lock, get her hands tied together, and then take you down from there. Yeah. I just think Vlismas will be too fast. She's a very good mover. And now she's got the cardio and the urgency to back it up. And a lot of her strikes are very, like, I would call them purposeful, right? Like she's actually trying to hurt people with those strikes, not just throwing out pitter-patter point fighting for the judges. So, man, should I get to a bet on her? Minus 200, is it still there? I mean, is that?
I got 195. I got minus 195 myself.
In a couple
earlier
units on
today.
That. Yeah, I still see it at minus 195. Okay.
Yeah, so I think it's a good spot. We'll see. And I'm not an IG capper by any means here, Patrick, but she looks in phenomenal shape going into this fight. She looks like she's ready to go. Let's just put it that way.
And shout out to our guy XBL on Twitch, our guy Brian, who does all the stats and tracks a lot of the YouTubers as well. Every week, it's been a lot of fun. So I appreciate the hard work that you do, my friend, and just watching all the content and tracking things for us on Twitter. Yeah, so that wraps up the prelims now. Moving into the main card, which is a short notice bout here between Mikhail Oleksiejczuk and Cody Brundage, who is filling in for, I think, Albert Duraev on short notice, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I mean, Cody Brundage is a guy who has showed up on short notice before, I believe, in his debut against Nick Maximov. Got out decision there, I think, like 2 rounds to 1. And now he's come through. He had that nice comeback over Dalcha Lungiambula. In March, he had another active year where, now he came back and fought Trayshawn Gore, knocked him out in round 1. So now he's having a third fight this year. And can he pull this off again? I mean, he's a big underdog in this spot, almost more than I would expect, right? We got Mikhail minus 270, minus 275 in the money line. Brundage about a plus 230, plus 235 as an underdog. I want to bet Brundage. I'm waiting on this number to creep up even more. It's starting to move backwards on some books. I'm hoping people keep on picking Michelle because I think Cody Brundage has way more of a chance than this money line indicates to get this job done. He's a finisher. Mikhail is a guy who likes to get his work done early. I think most of his fights end under 1.5 so far in the UFC. What if Brundage could wrestle his way to drag this out late? I don't know enough about the skill of Brundage to determine how he's going to look late into a fight either himself, but I just think the money line is way too wide, and I think Brundage has as much of a puncher's chance as anybody in this fight and could grapple as well. So am I crazy for wanting to put a money line bet on Brundage? I'm just waiting for the number to get fatter, honestly, Manpreet.
I think the number is already fat enough, my friend.
Oh, really?
I took a shot here at plus 230 myself, man. Like, yeah, I'm a big Lord Michal fan. I love this guy's style. I mean, how can you not all action?
His uppercut is nasty.
Nasty, absolutely nasty. But like, we've seen him look amateur when taken to the ground. Now he's done a good job in terms of trying to shore up those inefficiencies in his game. His takedown defense is improving, even though he got taken down 8 times by Jimmy Crute in 3.5 minutes. It was that final takedown that ultimately like ended it for him. That's where we saw him finally give up, like pretty much settle into position. He was flat on his back on the mat, and within seconds, Jimmy Crute is in full mount of this guy. Like it is almost instant that you can slice through this guy's guard. And Cody Brundage, we're led to believe that he's a very good wrestler. And I have seen some decent work from him on the regional scene to showcase that. But like, if he can relentlessly grapple here nice and early and get that chain takedown, that eventual takedown where he can get me flat on his back, he's going to look way better than plus 230. And again, like Michał by knockout is the obvious play here for a lot of people. And I completely understand that. But we got to look at the scenario where if Brundage, who has the tool set to do it, gets this guy to the ground, we're in for a good night. Like it's one thing to think if Dustin Jacoby went out there and tried to get a takedown here. We know he doesn't have the skill set to do it, but we know Cody Brundage has that skill set to potentially get this fight to the ground, and something that he's looked to do in past fights. I trust him, his coaches, Mark Montoya, the guys over there at Factory X, to know that, to see that, drag this fight to the ground, possibly get a ground and pound finish from on top. But plus 230 is an egregious line, in my opinion. I think it's way too wide.
Do you think it's going to move further in the direction of Lord Michał? Can I be greedy and gamble, let it ride until later in the week, and maybe get a plus 240, plus 250?
You know, I think our guy Liam does this the best, if I'm not mistaken. He'll put a bet down, and if the line continues to move like he gets a better line, he will add some more to it. So why not go in half unit right now and then just take a beat and see where this goes? I was already in at plus 230. If he gets to plus 250, plus 260, 270, I might add another half unit just because I feel that good.
I wanted your opinion because I honestly thought I was crazy by picking Brundage here. No. Not only picking him, like, you know, you can pick him and it's not a big deal, but putting money behind him at this price tag, I thought maybe you'd say this is a stay away spot, but you know, I'm on the team of our guy Lou Betya now. He's a big Brundage fan, of course. You know, he had him on the show on the MMA Engine. And also along this point, I keep a lot of metrics in my head, but one thing I don't keep a good track of is where these guys are training, who their coaches are. It's something I got to get better at. I know you're a guy haven't you worked in the past in the industry with coaches? And I know you got the show, but didn't you work at like an MMA gym in the past?
I've been all over the MMA scene, right? I mean, we were talking about it before, working with the UFC a little bit, working with the regional shows up here in the Southern Ontario area. I used to be a general manager at an MMA gym here.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Elias used to train out of that gym, as well as former UFC fighters Mckenna, Sean Pearson. Those are like our main guys to come out of the gym. I've been everywhere, dude. I try to stay engaged with this community as much as possible, from the promoters to the coaches to the fighters to the gamblers, as many people as possible. I'm trying to get to know every single person, and I feel like I've done a great job thus far.
I mean, that's what makes your content so useful, compelling, and it's a different perspective too. So for the rest of this main card, feel free to jump in and tell me where these people are training, and that's something in 2023 for my breakdowns I want to get better at doing, is keeping track of where they train. So I'm glad I'm on the same side as you with that bet. I will probably do that thing. Maybe I'll put down some money now, maybe half of a unit, because I wanted to do no more than a unit investment on this underdog shot. I mean, we're getting fat plus money on it, so maybe a half unit now at plus 230 and see if it moves. I think it will move, but I mean, that's it's just such a wide money line. I mean, these guys can just go in there in round one and just duke it out. One thing I like about Brundage is I might not know much about his skill and his ceiling in the UFC, but what I do know is he's aggressive as hell and he goes for it. You know what I mean? It might look sloppy. It might have some defensive holes at times, but he goes for it. That's what you want in a dog, you know?
Yeah, I'll put this out there as well. The Trishan Gore fight, he knocks him out off of his heels. Like, he's on his back foot while Trishan Gore is kind of moving forward, and he knocks him out. Michał, good striker, horrible striking defense. Man, this guy loves blocking punches with his face because his durability has been there, has gotten him as far as it has thus far. But you know, maybe Brundage is the one that exposes that shit. It's absolutely possible. So even in the striking realm, yes, of course, he's going to be at a disadvantage, but he does have that power to potentially land. But I would obviously love to see him try to get this fight to the mat ASAP and try to get him out there even faster.
Yeah, we got some dissent in the comments as well. People are back and forth in this one. My guy Cody, Blood Money MMA Bets, likes the Michał side, loves that boxing of Michał, which I agree. Technically, it is better, but yeah, we'll see. We got Johnny K picks. I think he's on the Mikal side as well. But we got Uncle Weezy with us on the Dog Shot. So, and they're going to interview him tomorrow on the MMA Engine channel. Uncle Weezy and Lou Betya. Going to get that the interview with him again. I know he's been on there once before. Super fun personality as well, and cool of him to do that with those guys on fight week as well. I'd probably just be I don't know, just like thinking evil thoughts in the corner by myself during fight week. I don't know if I'd be hanging out online, but that's pretty cool. That probably just leans to how confident and calm and collected he is. So
yeah, he's done a bunch of stuff with those guys. Shout out to Brundage for being that open with his time. I can't even think about messaging a fighter, during fight week. Like the coaches, I'll talk to every now and then just to get a feel of things. But fighters, no way, Jose. I'm good.
It's certainly that way because I've known a lot of professional fighters as well and amateur guys just over the years, and some of them are cool and they don't really, you could be talking to them right before the fight and they don't care, but there's some where they're super introverted and just kind of pacing back and forth and they don't even hear what you're saying. It goes in one ear and out the other, so.
Oh, I've seen that. I've definitely seen that as well. Well, one of the sorry, I just want to quickly add, probably the funnest thing I've done in this industry, getting paid or not, is cornering amateur fighters. Like that vibe. That like we would take these guys to this native reserve in Montreal, which is like 6 hours away from here. We would drive there, let these guys weigh in, and then these guys fight in like a I don't know if you guys have them down there. They're called Knights of Columbus, like halls, rec halls essentially, and it's like a small church and it's something like that, right? And they're fighting in a church. They're warming up in a kitchen with like 4 mats on the ground while the other guys are warming up on the stage.
That's true mixed martial arts. That's really what the sport is to me. I mean, it's super nice now with the Apex and, it's on ESPN. It's super weird, but this is really like it's a janky sport, in all honesty. You don't need much to do it. And it's usually just a bingo hall or like, something like that,
I saw Charles Jourdain and Louis Jourdain fight in that spot when they were still amateurs. Like Marc-Andre Barrios, another guy that was competing on those events as well. So very cool shit to see that side of the sport. Not a lot of people get to see it. Not a lot of people know about it. But that really gives you even more perspective going into these fights, I think.
That's what I grew up watching. Went to my first cage fight when I was in kindergarten. I was 6 years old. And because we got over here in the Midwest, there's we've got like Milwaukee above me in Wisconsin. We've got Chicago right below me as well. So there's 2 big cities. And around here, we had Ben Rothwell, who was kind of on the first scene with like some. Yeah. We had some stuff where he would kind of bring guys and I would help put the ring together when I was in middle school as well.
Oh, wow.
For certain ones as well. Because at our boxing gym, they would use that ring and just take it downtown. And Ben Rothwell will be fighting. We had a couple other guys, Solomon Hutcherson, some guys that were like pretty known in the early scene. And back then when MMA was so small, I mean, everybody knew each other from all parts of the country, right?
Yeah.
Because you're all competing in the same, the same fight halls. So
close-knit family, even still, like it is expanding. It's the most popular it's ever been, but it still feels tight-knit because, you go downtown and you ask 10 people, maybe 3 of them say, yeah, I know what MMA is. Don't say what UFC is, say what MMA is. And they'll probably know, but it's still
back then they would call it. It was. I mean, we still have Pancrase, we still have Vale Tudo, No Holds Barred, the NHB, and and even still today, I'm sure you guys see it. Like you and I know CJ Saftik, kind of doing the matchmaking up there. I'm sure that you see people. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It's up this way. You see the guy come as an amateur, be a small time pro, go and make it big, come back down, and now they're in the same hall again as an aged veteran trying to make money. So it comes full circle. They're like, hey, do you guys still need fights, from like 10 years ago when I was an amateur, and now it's an aged veteran just looking to get paid again. So you see them
that's Jesse
literally come
Ronson.
Full circle.
That's just like Jesse Ronson just fought last weekend, like just a town over from here, right? I saw him on the come up, knocking dudes out on the Score Fighting Series, a company that I used to work for as well, and then make it to the UFC. Didn't work out in the UFC, goes to the regional scene again, gets back to the UFC, and now back on the regional scene. Like crazy evolution for fighters.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So bear with those guys, just going down memory lane of some of the stuff that goes on. And we got a fun lightweight fight up next that I really want your opinion on because I am torn on this one. I do have a side I'm leaning, but as far as a bet goes, I'm looking at the time props in this one. This is Drew Dober taking on Bobby Green at lightweight. We've got these guys really have been on the same trajectory as far as their UFC path, right? Both been in the UFC for like 8 to 10 years at this point. Both have exactly 19 UFC fights apiece, and both have had kind of a similar record. Drew Dober going 11-7-1 no contest. Bobby Green 10-8-1 draw within his tenure with the UFC. So they're getting up there in age. Dober's 34, Bobby Green 36. both guys kind of can whoop up on the guys who don't belong, have mixed success with the guys that are in the middle of the division, and then probably going to lose to the elite of the elite. But Bobby Green is a guy who just has that nice, loose, elusive style. He'll bait you in with his hands down, counter punch you with nice pull counter 1-2s. Not really like a big knockout threat at this point. He went on like a 10 decision streak in his career before facing Ally Quinta. But you got to worry about his volume, and you got to worry about just the pace he puts on you. He'll eat punishment without really like anything landing flush on him. He'll answer with strong strikes that kind of put you in trouble. Drew Dober is a guy who we know is very durable because he gets hit a lot, but he never really gets put out. He's only been KO'd like maybe one time clean. So it's been a while too. It's been like probably 8 or 10 years since that's happened. And he's going into firefights now against guys like Terrence McKinney, outlasting him, having an exciting fight and winning. He had the fight with, Rafael Alves, weathered the early storm, came back in round 3 and got the win there. This is a spot where I don't know who's going to have the cleaner fight here, right? If this goes to decision, who can have the cleaner moments, land just a little bit more, make their opponent falter just that much more. It's going to be a very close fight, like a lot of Bobby Green fights are. With the plus money tag on him, Bobby Green here at like a plus 130, I am leaning that side, but it's too close for me to bet this fight because Drew Dober could just eat those punches to keep moving forward, trap Bobby Green against the fence, and maybe, land some devastating shots on him. I'm not quite sure. What side do you lean on this one? Who's going to have the cleaner fight to come out the victor here, Manpreet?
I lean King Bobby Green, man. It's his striking style. Yes, at times he fights a little bit too close to the level of his competition. Once we go to the judges' scorecards, you can fucking flip a coin, which is great because we're getting plus money on him this time. So you're getting some damn good odds to back a guy that more often than not shows up. He goes out there, a very slick striker, as Siki does MMA, saying their straight punches will beat that explosive blitzing style of Drew Dober, in my opinion. Dober might be more explosive, more athletic, and look like he's moving around more, but it's not going to matter when you're having punches thrown at your face and you slowly get frustrated, demoralized, and Bobby Green continues to touch you up. The Nasrat hack press fight is a perfect example of Green at his best, man. That Nasrat could not get started, and there is a potential that this fight will be close early, but as it starts to go on, as Bobby starts to stuff the inevitable takedowns that are going to come his way when Drew Dober gets frustrated, and then Dober can't get his own strikes off, I think Green will likely touch him up, win a classic Bobby Green type decision. I haven't pulled the trigger yet myself. I'm waiting to see where that action comes in. I want to see if that Dober money comes in. Maybe we get plus 150 or something on Bobby Green, but I'm in no rush to bet this, honestly. I'm fine, completely fine with passing it with it. Let's take into consideration the USADA suspension from Bobby Green as well. I'm not sure exactly what he was taking and what kind of effects it was having on him, but who knows what that could potentially do for him mentally, not having whatever he was using in the past, and how he comes back from something like this. Conventional wisdom shows me and tells me that Bobby Green is an OG and he will overcome this and still go out there and give us Bobby Green type performances. But I still have that little bit of an if, and there is the potential that we could get some more Drew Dober money this week, and I'll be happy for that action to come in to get a slightly better price on Bobby Green. No rush though. It's only Tuesday. You know what I mean? We got enough time.
Yeah, I don't think the USADA thing is too much of an issue in this case, to be honest, with Bobby Green and what he was accused of taking, which made total sense, honestly. I think it was DHEA they actually caught him for, which is a banned substance, even though you can get it over the counter, like you said. It's something that fighters definitely take, and all athletes take this, and it's banned in the Olympics. It's banned in World Anti-Doping and USADA as well. But really, it doesn't prove to do much of anything. Like, it's basically the building block compound that your body would end up making more like testosterone, estrogen, and other androgens out of. It's DHEA. It's like the building block. But by ingesting it, your body has other mechanisms to turn that off, and it doesn't give you like some crazy, roided out reaction from it, right? Like you just can't do it that way, and a lot of studies have proven that. But what it could do is if you take a lot of it to try to get that effect, it will flag the very sensitive metabolite test that they employ in the UFC now. So, and that kind of, I don't think we got all the information from that, but he was suspended for 6 months because of that. And that's probably because he admitted to it. And it's like, okay, well, you were ingesting something knowing that you wanted to get an effect from it, and it is banned technically. So we'll just give you 6 months. because it's really just not a big deal anyways. Like, I don't think there's much proven positive effect from it in general, but we didn't get the full story on exactly what had happened there. So that's all I know based on that. I don't think it's going to be a big deal for Bobby Green's performance, but the one thing I do like in this fight is the over 2.5. I got it at minus 155, put a couple units on that. I think it's moved right around minus 170 at this point. Dober's powerful. He's got like some of the most knockouts in lightweight history since he's been around for a while, but Bobby Green has, been proven to be very durable. Like I said, elusive enough not to hit that clean. And I think he's going to have the better performance here by a slight margin, but this could be a split decision. This could be a greasy spot here where the judges don't quite know. The aggression of Drew Dober, maybe one of the big moments, or the volume of Bobby Green. And we know how he likes to showboat as well. So yeah, I'm going to stay off of a side here no matter what they dangle in front of me. Even if we get plus 150 on Bobby Green, I'll probably stay off of this from a side,
I really think that this fight would be a pick'em if, Green was either coming off a win or, Dober just beat his last opponents by decision, essentially, right? Like, he is hot right now. He's the hot commodity considering he's finished 2 guys back to back. Momentum is in his favor. That's why I think a lot of people are kind of leaning him and why he's the minus 150 favorite here. And I'm kind of glad that you brought up the over 2.5, because I remember, the fight with Bobby Green against Ally Quinta. That was probably the widest over 2.5 I've ever seen. I think it was like minus 400 or something wild like that. And Bobby Green finally decides to go out there and finish somebody.
That's horrible in hindsight. Oh,
right? Exactly.
That hurts my brain in hindsight.
Exactly. And now you would think that minus 175 is a steal. It's a bargain in a Bobby Green fight, but who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
And you are, like you said, you're getting that recency of, we just saw an all-out war between Drew Dober and his last 2 opponents. Yep. So I don't think we're going to get that kind of performance from Bobby Green pushing the pace that way and putting himself in that much danger. So I like the over 2.5 here, and I have bet that. So moving on to a very fun fight here. And by the way, we got 53. You guys are rocking with us. 54. Go ahead and check out all of Manpreet's links in the description. Unless you live under a rock, you already know this man. He's a legend of the game. But I do have his Insta, his Twitter, YouTube, and his Patreon in the description as well. You can get the betting tips from the man himself, who's proven third-party tracked profitable over a number of years, which is not easy to do. So go and check out that Patreon as well. And up next, we have a featherweight fight between Bruce Leroy Caceres versus Julian Erosa. 2 guys who are, always hanging on in the UFC, inconsistent at best. But Bruce Leroy Caceres, going back down memory lane, one of my favorite guys, because when he got the news he'd be on the Ultimate Fighter, I looked just like him at that point in time. I was a very tall, lanky, skinny dude.
Not
a whole lot of muscle, and I had a bigger afro than he did when he went onto the show. So I looked just like him. He was instantly a favorite of mine. He would have YouTube videos with Dada 5000 and like the backyard fighting scene. And look up Bruce Leroy versus Shorty Cash, and it's Bruce Leroy in like MMA attire and like some Mexican dude with tattoos and jorts. Jean shorts, if you will, and Bruce Leroy just jumps all over him, chokes him out, instantly. So there's a lot of fun, like George Masvidal, Kimbo Slice style fight videos with my guy Bruce Leroy, and now he's had a legitimate career with 26 UFC fights.
Surprising.
And towards the end of that, recently until March, he was on a 5-fight winning streak. That Sungwoo Choi, that hurt my pockets a lot, but I was happy to see him pull it off as a fan of his. So, Sadiq Yusuff, that's actually kind of like a feather in your cap to go the distance with that guy at this point. He got his legs chopped up. He got outstruck. But Julian Erosa, what I like about this guy in this fight is he's kind of chinny. The better strikers will knock him out, but you don't have to worry about that power with Caceres. And you got Julian Erosa, who's got the submission game to kind of hang with that craftiness of Caceres, in my opinion. So I like Julian Erosa here, and I probably will have a money line bet on him at this point. If this money line goes any higher before I get to that bet, probably won't take it. But right around that minus 160, I do like for Julian Erosa. How do you see this fight playing out between these 2 guys?
You nailed it, dude. Like, these guys are just somehow always in the UFC talks, right? Like, Julian Erosa even got cut, won one fight, and got right back into the UFC. He's going to be that like reliable veteran to go out there and test some of these guys, just as he did against Hakeem Dawodu. Pulls off the victory as a plus 200 underdog, shows off his veteran savvy that night, and puts on a great performance. And Alex Caceres, his last win, he obviously lost to Sadiq last time around. The one before that, Sungwoo Choi, he's a plus 225 underdog in that, and he pulls off the victory. So these guys are always going to be hanging around that, upper middle tier kind of guy that are always going to be challenging for most opponents. And now here they are fighting each other. So it's such a hard fight to call for me personally. But what I did seem to hone in on is the over 2.5. You kind of nailed it in terms of the durability and defensive skills of these guys in most spots. Julian with his submission defense should be fine in terms of dealing with that grappling onslaught if it comes his way from Caceres. Both these guys have flashy, unorthodox striking styles, which kind of makes it hard to hit them cleanly. Like Erosa can get hit, like that guy for sure, hands down at all times, but he does a decent job of rolling with shots. And Caceres, you nailed it, not a big knockout threat either. So I can see this being a back and forth matchup, grappling, clinching, striking, all of the good stuff in there. But I think the slightly better strikes will be coming from the Erosa side. I think the slightly more damaging and more impactful shots will come from the Julian Erosa side. But I ultimately think this fight goes the distance. Minus 155, I think, was the over 2.5. I could be off on that. I think that's what I pulled the trigger on. Hold on, let me just pull it up here. Yeah, over 2.5, minus 155. Love that spot. I think these guys kind of nullify each other for the most part, but Erosa will have that damage edge, and I think that will be the reason he gets his hand raised in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, something about Alex Caceres, and by the way, that Sung Woo Choi fight was almost in the bag for us. I mean, I had him like parlayed with, I forgot who it was on that card, but I had a pretty hefty parlay on it that was going to cash if Sung Woo Choi would have done his damn job, but he had to throw that illegal knee in that fight, if you remember, and that's really what made a pause in the action and, was able to save Alex Caceres from getting, TKO'd there. Alex Caceres, like, he's durable and proven to be, but at the same time, why is it like every time he gets hit, like it's so visibly damaging to the judges and to the fans, right? It looks like you can really tell every time he gets hit.
Fro.
It might be that, yeah. Something about it, like he always wildly overreacts when he gets hit, and but he does have kind of a brick for a head in that aspect. But yeah, I like Juicy. How about the ability to get the fight to the ground? Because Alex Caceres, he's a guy who's always had that BJJ base in his back pocket, but just not the wrestling ability to take it to the mat or the desire to. Maybe he likes to strike at range. Julian Erosa, not the best takedown offense, like by percentage wise, but you got to imagine Erosa's going to be better at getting this fight to the ground. We just saw him against Dawadu. How do you feel? Is fight ending by submission? Like I saw somebody left that comment in here. That's kind of an interesting look as well. I know you like the overs, but if there was something juicy on this prop, is that the way that the guy would win the fight? Because they're both durable. They would have to get tapped out probably, right?
Yeah, I think so. Sub would probably be the method if there was a finish, I think. But I think like the only way that grappling situations get started in this matchup are from maybe like a wild kick or something, and then the opponent tries to push them over when they're off balance or something like that. Like that's, I don't think we're going to see either guy come out here and try to go for double legs. Maybe in the third round when this fight is hanging in the balance or something like that. But early, I think both these guys are going to want to flash their striking, see who is the better one at the end of the day. And then once this fight goes deep, they'll probably look for that angle. But yeah, I'm thinking distance. I'm thinking over distance, Erosa by decision.
Man, if you're right and this is a striking only battle, this is going to be such an awkward fight.
Oh God, could you imagine?
And I am here for it as well. I am here for it. So moving on, we've got 3 fights to go on the main card. We got a flyweight fight up next. Once again, Amir Albazi, both of his opponents pulling out, high-level guys as well pulling out of that fight. So now he's left with Alessandro Costa, Brazilian flyweight off of the Dana White Contender Series, where he got a split decision win. No contract. I think that was week 1, I believe, where Dana got all pissed off that the fights were boring.
Joe Pfeiffer.
So, yeah, nobody was being Joe Pfeiffer that night. So, but 12-2 guy in Alessandro Costa. I did watch a lot of his, in Lux Fight League, the Mexican promotion. I watched a lot of those fights. Pretty well-rounded skill set for this guy. He does seem most comfortable on the ground. But he's got, we saw that one fight he had scheduled for 5 rounds in Lux Fight League after the summer appearance on the Contender Series, and Costa needed just like 12 seconds of those 5 rounds and landed like a 1-2 left hook combination, left his opponent just sleeping on the canvas. So he does have power in his hands, but I think he's outgunned here against Amir Albazi. Not much I can do with the Albazi money line, which is creeping towards minus 500. But is there a reason to even think about taking an underdog shot on Costa here? Like, just from anything besides like just a pure mathematical reason, right? Like, oh, there's got to be value on the dog here. Besides that kind of thinking, is there any other reason skill set wise I should be looking at Costa?
The only way I'd be looking at Costa here is his ability to stay in the fight. which is why I've kind of honed in on the over 1.5, which is rare for flyweight fights unless your name is Daniel De Silva, right? Like usually
Yeah.
flyweight fights go deep. So the over 1.5, I got at minus 179, minus 180, if you want to call it. It's roughly still around that. I think we're going to get more action on that, which will probably push the, widely available total to 2.5. But while it's still at 1.5 at a reasonable price, I think it's worth a shot. Like, I am huge on Albazi. I love this kid. I think he has a ton of potential. He has great wrestling. His jiu-jitsu is there as well. His striking is starting to catch up, and he has solid cardio. We saw him face all kinds of problems against Ismagulov in that first round, comes back in the second and third and grinds that thing out and showcases that he can adapt on the fly. Costa, I don't think this guy will have a long career in the UFC, but I think he's decent enough. Like, he is decent enough to stay within the fight. Like, his striking deserves a little bit of respect. His BJJ solid, especially when he's able to get your back. So I think if Albazi does look to get this fight to the ground, I don't think he slices through him like butter or anything like that. I think he's not as much of a defensive liability as Francisco Figueiredo or Malcolm Gordon. I think he does some things well, and that should keep him in this fight long enough for us to cash that over 1.5. Maybe Albazi finishes him late, or maybe he drags it to a decision, which he has done in the past, right? I believe it's plus 235, plus 245 for Albazi by decision. That's kind of where I'm leaning here. Haven't bet it. The only thing I bet was the over 1.5, but I'm going to keep my eye on that decision prop. I might take at least a half unit sprinkle on that because I think people are just fading Costa just because a short notice contender series guy, but he doesn't look the worst on tape. I don't think he's a tomato can by any means. So I think he has the durability and toughness to stay in this fight, but will likely lose the entire time.
I think the money line is both a product of how good Albazi looks, the short notice and debuting nature of the fight, and then also the fact, normally when you have these overlapping strengths, right? Like the strength of you're seeing Costa with a lot of submission skill, a lot of them pretty low level of competition, getting arm bars off of his back. I think that accounts for like 5 of his submissions on his record. Stuff like that, when it's like overlapping with the extremely good submission skill of Albazi, then it's like, where does he go from there, right? Does he stand and strike with Albazi? Does he have the defensive wrestling to do that and get a knockout at flyweight? So I think that's partially why it's a magnified money line here. Like, you just don't have a clear path for him to win. But yeah,
I screwed up the line movement, by the way. I got minus 179. I'm seeing at minus 170, minus 165 at certain spots. So maybe I got a little bit too hasty there, thinking the line was going to go the other way.
But it doesn't make it. But it doesn't make that any less of a great bet. Like, you'll never get me arguing about an over 1.5 in a flyweight fight, or a fight goes to decision in a flyweight fight. I'm always looking for the reason to bet those. You know what I mean? That's normally they're making us choose on like a heavyweight fight or a greasy, like power punching, 2 guys that have nothing but like right at that, like early round 2 KO and under, and they're making us kind of like, they're just dangling that plus 170 over 1.5 at us. We have to
Buckley
choose
versus Al Hassan.
Yeah. Oh man, don't even get me started on all those. I'm so glad I didn't play overs and unders last week because there were so many that were seconds from going either way.
The Ponzinibbio fight, 1 second, the under cashes 1 second.
Yeah, because I think I did like a short recap of that, just the results when I was doing the betting results for that. And it was like, because we had 10 fights that didn't go to decision, right? I think only like 4 or 5 of the unders cashed, I want to say, because there was like a few that were botched. There was a few that were like a little bit over 1.5, a little bit over 2.5.
The Till Duplessis one was 13 seconds over the under.
Oh my God. So, oh my God. Yeah. That's why I'm getting less fancy with those. Like I'll pick my spots when it's like a big value like this. So maybe I'll write that down and maybe play that one. So far, the only over under I have is the Bobby Green Drew Dober one, but I like a good over 1.5 in a flyweight fight. You won't get me complaining about that. So even when it loses, I'm like, well, most of the time this happens. This will even out in the end, you know? So
yeah. I'm more of an unders guy than an overs guy, but recently I've been doing decently with overs. So I'm kind of just sticking with that and just seeing, every couple fights, see if I can spot one. Bellator, I got Caspel and Jared Scoggins over. That was kind of easy to hit. And hopefully the 2 that I took this weekend, Erosa, as well as the Albazi ones, hopefully those come through as well. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I hope so. And we got a really fun fight up next, which I am needing your opinion. I don't even just want to hear your opinion. I need your opinion on this fight. This is Arman Tsarukyan taking on Damir Ismagulov at lightweight. This could be its own fight night main event at any given time. So I'm glad that this is Adding on to the co-main event of this card to end the year, because this is a really fun fight, and Tsarukyan's had a very active year with high-level competition. We had a Tsarukyan against, what's his face? Joel Alvarez, where he pieced him up, made him wear that crimson mask with those elbows, won that fight by stoppage. He had the fight against Mateusz Gamrot, which, headlined a card. Very close loss there. And now Damir Ismagulov. So this is an interesting matchup here. 31 years old for Ismagulov, just 26 for Tsarukyan, who's had one of these spots as a young guy coming up, ready to face Islam Makhachev in his debut. No easy task there. Moving on to, like I said, the Mateusz Gamrot one. I like Tsarukyan a lot. I like his strength. I like his ability to strike and then pair that striking with good wrestling, and his ground and pound is nasty. But so is Damir Ismagulov, who's had a very good takedown defense rating so far. I think only taken down by his last fight in Guram Kutadaladze. I think Tsarukyan's going to be the second guy to take him down, but I think both guys will have their moments in this extremely close fight. And the odds are way wider than I would expect for this fight. -190, -200 for Tsarukyan. Damir Ismagulov about a +160 underdog. I slightly think, Tsarukyan's going to win this fight. I think we've got to factor in the fact that he's so young, leveling up his game. I like his striking and his ability to mix the striking and the grappling. I think he just moves a little bit faster than Ismagulov, frankly, but no way I can get to a bet on this fight. Like, Damir Ismagulov has all of the betting value. I just don't think he pulls it off. So I'm staying off of this from a betting perspective. I want to watch it play out, but do you have a stronger read on this fight? I want somebody with a strong conviction on this fight.
I'll give you one. I feel damn good about the 24-1 Damir Ismagulov, man. The guy he's still 31 years old. He'll be 32 in February, but the guy has a great skill set. I don't like the fact that he's been relatively inactive since about 2020, but this is going to be his second fight in 6 months. He's finally getting back to fighting regularly. And he's shown that, he had that ring rust moment against Rafael Alves at the early going of their last fight. Managed to come back, get back to his meat and potatoes, and was able to get the win. Here against Tsarukyan, yes, Tsarukyan will likely have the grappling advantage, and I think that's why he's at the line he's currently at. But Ismagulov can grapple too. Like, this will be a competitive grappling matchup for as long as it takes place in that spot. The difference maker here is the striking. I think Ismagulov is the much cleaner striker here. Tsarukyan, a lot of his striking is just kicks on the outside, and then he crashes forward with big bombs, and there's no real substance to it. He's not really throwing like a jab, uppercut. Like, he's just going balls to the wall so that he can throw something out there. But the eventual goal is to get the fight to the ground. And he's going to struggle to do that here, in my opinion. He might be able to get it, but I don't believe in his ability to hold Ismagulov down. Ismagulov will always be scrambling, getting back to his feet, getting back to his bread and butter, his meat and potatoes, which is the jab. His lead hand is so goddamn educated. We saw the painting he made on Guram's face in the second round of their fight. Like, the guy can strike, and I don't think Arman is ready for that level of technical striking. I think both guys still have a bright future, but I think at this point in time, it's closer to Damir's time than it is Arman's time. And +160 on a fighter that is usually -400, -500. You gotta bet it, I think. I think that he's good enough to hang with Tsarukyan. So, give me Damir by decision, but just money line is good enough.
I'm glad you like that side quite a bit, and I do like the lead hand of Ismagulov is nasty. That jab is constant, it's precise, it's well timed, and then I like when he switches it off to a nice lead left hook as well, and he'll catch you with that rushing in, and you're expecting the jab, and it comes right around your guard. I like a lot from Ismagulov. He's great. What do you draw from that fight with Kutadaladze being such a close fight? We saw the nice striking of Ismagulov, but we also saw that he can get cracked. He did have a moment of trouble there against Guram for a bit, but he showed good composure. Do you think his stock rose in that fight, or do you think we saw some limitations?
I think it kind of just stayed the same, only because I still thought there was some shades of some ring rust on him. That was his second fight since 2020 or 2019, I believe. He's been relatively inactive. I believe he had some sort of car accident or something way back in 2020, which has kept him out for as long as it did. But no, I think he showcased that he can still compete with the top guys. Like, Guram is a top guy. Very good fighter. We saw him, controversially beat Mateusz Gamrot, but that was a close fight. We know what level of fighter Guram is, and the fact that Ismagulov still won that fight. Say what you want about the scorecards. He did a lot of damage in that fight, showcased that he can, stop grapple heavy onslaughts should they come his way. I thought we could take a lot of good things from that fight, especially to apply to this one against Arman Tsarukyan.
What do you think about the gas tank? I know Damir Ismagulov has been in M1. He's been in a lot of 5-rounders. At the UFC level, do you have any inkling that he won't be able to hang in a 5-round fight with Tsarukyan? Who do you see taking over in the championship rounds of this? I'm sorry, this is not even a 5-rounder.
It should be. It should be a
3-round fight. That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like. But as far as like what I'm trying to get at is
when he starts fighting the championship level guys.
Well, when he starts in the future, but even in this fight, do you think that we'll see like a hastened pace from Tsarukyan, knowing that he can go like he knows that he can go like a hard 5 rounds? Will we see more volume from him within a 3-round fight in this one? Who's going to push the pace in this one? Because they both have proven that they have gone 5 rounds before. Are we going to see more volume from either of these two guys within 3 rounds? I wonder. I just wonder how that strategy is within a fight. Like, knowing that you don't have to hold yourself back in rounds 1 and rounds 2, because you don't have to go rounds 4 and rounds 5, like in this spot in the co-main.
I think Arman's just going to do what he normally does, and that's just try to grapple, man. Get this guy to the ground, impose your grappling, impose your will, try to get some damage off when you're able to get those positions. But I think that Ismagulov is sound defensively here to keep him working, and then whenever they're at range, that damage, hopefully, the way they scored the damage of Paddy Pimblett this past week, hopefully that's what occurs here, but way more than how much Paddy was able to get off on him. But I think we'll see that. I think Damir is too educated to get stuck in bad spots, and then on the feet, clearly the better striker, I think.
Yeah, I'm just like my guy Johnny K here. The pick is Arman, but so slight, man. I can't bet that money line. Who do you want to win this fight? What would set up like fun potential matchups at lightweight here?
I've been big on Damir, man. Like I don't know what it is. Like I have very high hopes for the guy. I think he can compete with the best of them. It's just unfortunately he's been inactive over the last couple of years, right? So I would like to see him get the win. I'd like to see him fight that top 10, top 5 range of guys to see where he stacks up. And yeah, man, I think he has championship potential if he can put it back together.
Yeah, I like seeing these guys with giant streaks from M1 coming to the UFC, still undefeated. And at 31, I probably would be in the same boat. Like to see him move forward. And, Arman's got time, such a young guy, a lot of potential for, fun finishes, fun fights. But yeah, I'd like to see Damir go up there and try to work his way through the ranks and make some fresh matchups before it's past his prime as well. I've got
maybe him versus Gamrot after this would be great.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, this is kind of like a dance between everybody that's fought Gamrot, so it's next up for Damir, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's like the gambler side of me that wants certain things as a bettor to make money. There's like a fan side, and there's like that OCD part of my brain that just wants to see the rankings like make sense, wants to have like fun, exciting matchups, wants things to be in a certain order. Yeah. And then, there's always certain fighters that always screw that up somehow.
Lightweight is the worst for that, right? Because there's a lot of guys that are just still there because they have big names, but their skills don't really match up to their ranking anymore, I think. So I think we're going to see that exodus of, the Poiriers, the Gaethjes, and
that's really what the problem is, right? Yeah. I'm sure Conor McGregor's still in the rankings.
Yeah, exactly. He's probably number one.
He's probably still still number one.
God damn it. Leave him alone. Fuck.
All right. We've made it all the way to the main event of this fight night card. Thank you guys all for rocking with us. Almost 50 of you guys still in the live chat. And thank you to Manpreet for hanging out with me and gracing us all with your time and knowledge for the last card of the year. So Jared Cannonier taking on Sean Strickland at middleweight, potential 5-round bout in this spot. Two guys that, lost to the former champion and the current champion, respectively, on the same night they last fought in the summer. So on the same timeline here, it's a really odd fight for me. I don't have a strong lean either way. We're looking at the odds as kind of a complete pick'em, right? It's kind of switching back and forth as some of these fights in this card are. I think the money is going more towards the Sean Strickland side. Maybe you're getting like minus 105, Jared Cannonier, minus 115 for Sean Strickland. I'm still seeing a lot of books that are trading money back and forth. So almost a 50-50 spot here. Who do you like in this spot, Manpreet?
I think we are getting a bit of a bargain here on the Sean Strickland side, if I'm being honest. Jared Cannonier, fun middleweight, had some fun knockouts, some good fights, some competitive fights, but I think that Sean Strickland's style is just too hard for a guy like Jared Cannonier, right? Like he's very persistent with the striking, good jab, stays in perpetual motion. You know what I mean? Like just stays moving, stays working, and keeps putting numbers on the board. Whereas Cannonier, I think he's a little bit more reliant on those explosive movements to help him get ahead of his opponents. I think again, more recency bias here, which we can kind of apply is, I don't think the Strickland line is any wider because I think people think the Pereira knockout will have a lot to do with this matchup. And I think you might be like, of course, Cannonier can knock anybody out. Don't get me wrong. But I think the thought process would be incorrect in that, considering Alex Pereira, world-class knockout artist, world-class striker, had the size and reach advantage on Sean Strickland. And a lot of Strickland's striking defense comes down to him just kind of leaning back and trying to roll with shots. That was not going to work against a guy like Alex Pereira. There's a reason I bet Alex Pereira that night, because I knew he was going to catch Sean Strickland and knock him out. A lot of people expected Sean to go out there and grapple. The guy never grapples. So we can't go out there and assume that he's going to do so. But here against Cannonier needs to explode into the pocket to land those big strikes. The Cannonier needs to, have that telegraph to come in, cross the distance, cross the pocket, and get his strikes off. Sean Strickland will already be rolling with those shots more often than not, or be out of the way of those shots, and then answering with a counter or two of his own. The guy is just so persistent. One of the funnest fighters to watch, but for the most part, quite reliable in the fact that he will go out there and do what you need him to do, similar to what Katlyn Chookagian does, similar to what Neil Magny does. You're going to get volume out of them. You're going to get a decent gas tank out of them, and nothing will usually stop them from doing that. All signs usually point to Sean Strickland having good durability. Okay, he got knocked out by Alex Pereira. That's a completely different story. But I think he is the better fighter here over Cannonier. The danger will be there for the first 10 to 12 minutes, but I think after that, Sean Strickland will be comfortable enough that he can do his thing without too much threat coming back his way. So I got enough down to win at least 2 units here on Sean Strickland around that minus 114 range. I think it's a good spot. I hope I'm not trying to pad his possible chin issues too much here, but nothing historically speaking shows us that Sean Strickland has a horrible gas tank, or horrible chin, I should say.
Sean Strickland is such a weird mover in the way that he's such a good boxer, so active with his hands, but his feet are just like so slow and lazy, but it somehow works. Like he's always in motion, stalking down his opponents, getting out of the way of strikes, keeping a nice high guard. But it's so weird to watch him fight the way he does, right? Because he's so accurate and so high volume, but he doesn't waste any movement bouncing around or being light on his feet. Like that might add to like his gas tank in 5-round fights. Like he's not just wasting motion, doesn't feint all that much, like you would. It's very strange to watch. Don't you agree? Like it's weird for having over 5 significant strikes landed per minute over such a huge sample of fights is extreme for a middleweight fighter. Like that's a huge number.
I felt like I ate way too much chalk on him when he fought Jack Marshman, I think it was, especially late in that fight where he's like, "Come on, Jack, let's throw, Jack, come on," and he's just like waiting to get hit. I'm like, "Dude, chill. You got this fight in the bag. What are you doing here?" You know what I mean? Hopefully he doesn't do that here against Jared Cannonier, because Cannonier will absolutely make him pay. But I'm glad that Siki Does MMA actually brought this up. People forgetting how good Cannonier's leg kicks are. I think that is a solid approach for Cannonier. You know what I mean? I'm hoping that the perpetual forward motion of Sean Strickland will keep Jared Cannonier on his back foot, which will cause it or make it harder for Cannonier to get those leg kicks off, keeping that jab in his face, responding anytime Cannonier throws a kick, just respond with the punch. And that's going to make that guy stop kicking. Yeah. Exactly. It'll make him stop kicking and think twice about doing it unless he wants to eat another 1-2 straight down the middle. So great point, though. That is a very positive point for the Cannonier side, and I think that's a viable argument as well.
What is Cannonier by decision? What if along those leg kick lines, do we have a classic Forrest Griffin, Quentin Jackson leg kick clinic? Do we have a classic who else?
Shogun versus Machida?
Yeah, Keith Jardine versus Chuck Liddell. Do we have a classic leg kick performance over 5 rounds and Cannonier cleans house with a decision victory? That's probably got to be
plus 300.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's not very much.
This fight is favored to go the distance, though, right? At minus 130, minus 140. So it kind of makes sense to me there.
Yeah, well, that's horrible, because that's like not. I guess Cannonier did win a 5-rounder against Kelvin Gastelum. Didn't have to knock him out.
I was there that night, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, and nice, and that was back in that was already
August 2021,
already a year and a half ago. So
I know time flies, dog.
Yeah, and Jared Cannonier has never been like a flash knockout guy. Like it's not like one punch that finishes the job, right? It's usually like an elbow or a stiff hook. Then he's got to finish it up with the ground and pound, right? He catches them wobbled, he chases, and he gets them to the ground. And then those nasty, devastating ground and pound elbows are really what he's basically elbowing the canvas, and your skull just happens to be in the way, right? That's usually what it looks like.
So. Yeah. Like he pounced on Jack Hermanson after Hermanson couldn't get takedowns. Pounced on Derek Brunson after he dropped him as well. So yeah, who knows, man? He has a ton of power. I'll give him that. But I think Strickland is educated enough on the feet here to stay safe. He will eat some shots, but I think his durability will come through here.
You're giving me more faith on the Strickland side. I was on his side. I didn't bet it yet. The money line seemed, it seemed great, but then I'm thinking of then I went back and watched the tape and I saw these things, right? How Jared Cannonier, not always like the big, power, like he's a power threat for sure, like we just talked about, but not like one punch knockout Alex Pereira style, right? It's not one strike that's doing it.
Nor the technique, right? That's the thing. Like it's that straight from Alex or that left hook from Alex, like those technical aspects that have been ingrained in him since he was a kid, being the striker that he is. That's not what Jared Cannonier. Jared Cannonier is, hopping out of Alaska, doing flight controlling, and then eventually turning into MMA. Like completely different story.
And let's be fair, some of these knockouts that we remember him from, some of the more flash KO Cannonier performances were at heavyweight against fat guys, light heavyweight.
Yeah.
They weren't really against, the cream of the crop at middleweight, right? Like, even though he's done quite well at the weight class, not, one of them was against the old man Anderson Silva, whose leg was like, made out of toothpicks that night. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's not as great as we think it was.
You remember Cyril Lasker? Remember that guy?
Yes. Yeah. That's a perfect example, right? Of like, that was like more of a flat, like he knocked him like clean across the ring. I feel like,
he destroyed him. Cyril Lasker was my favorite fade in the UFC. Bar none. I love that guy.
Missed that guy. I think Tai Tuivasa had that. Didn't he have like a flying knee on him as well?
Yeah. That was the last fight he's ever had back in February of 2018.
Yeah.
UFC 221.
So yeah, I'm with you on this. I might get to a money line bet on this now and have to sweat out Sean Strickland, falling on his ass again, and I'm going to blame you for it. You'll be the first. You'll be getting my invoice of what I bet on it
right away.
I'll be looking for a couple C notes coming from Toronto.
That'd be hilarious. No, I hope not. It's his style is frustrating, but it's so fucking effective. It is so effective.
Yeah, you're right. And it seems like the power of Cannonier is on a timer. So as we get later in this fight, maybe closer to being home free. And I've probably just jinxed it. And we've had a lot of main events ending in round 5. So yeah, Cannonier's submission round 5, last second. Let's go.
Don't you dare put that juju out there. Jeez.
All right. It's been an awesome show, man. 14 fights we broke down excellently. And I could not have done it without my awesome guest tonight, MMA Lock of the Night, Manpreet. It's been an honor, my friend. Like I said, I've been watching you for a long time, and I can honestly say I've learned from watching your content to make my channel this year. It's been an awesome one. So shout out to everybody in the chat, all 48 of you guys. Appreciate you. Check out Manpreet's links in the description. Look out. Actually, plug the Patreon and tell us what content you got on there.
Yeah, I hate plugging that on people's
shows.
Please. I mean, so I appreciate you giving me the platform to do that. That's where I do like my best bets and props article. Every single fight, I give you my confidence level in the best bet, the best prop. I try to get those out as quickly as possible, even before my own podcast come out, so people kind of get the rundown of what my thoughts are for that. And then recently adding the regional MMA shows, I'll only be doing main event breakdowns for the YouTube public. The rest of the card will only be on the Patreon. It's a shit ton of work, so I thought it was a good spot or a good perk to add to that as well. Got over 350 members over there, so a lot of people loving what's going on over there, and I hope to continue to drop that fight content for the folks, whether it's through the Patreon or through my own YouTube channel, MMA Lock of the Night. Make sure you guys check that shit out. Keep showing Patrick some love. There's a reason I had him on my show earlier this year, because I knew this dude would be around for a while. I know he's going to kill it, and I know it's going to continue to get easier and better and be viewed on a wider platform in the very near future.
Dude, I was okay with having like 25 subs when I made like my second video. Like that was fine with me. I just want to talk shit and talk about MMA with people who like to talk MMA. So the fact that it's grown to pushing 600 and beyond now is incredible. And I've been a mixed martial arts fan my whole life. This is one of the funnest years I've had, covering the sport and watching it. So
that's why I admire you. Yeah, that's why I admire you a little bit more. We're fans like the pre-Conor days, the Brock Lesnar days, even before that, like remembering those, the Chuck Liddells and all that stuff. I love chatting with people about that era of the UFC and MMA as well.
Yeah, it's fun, man. It's part of why I love this game so much, because we got some truly dedicated people that just want to analyze every piece of the sport. You don't always get that. You might know a couple guys who like to watch fights, watch the main cards, but people who are analyzing, how many strikes per minute Cheyenne Vlismas is throwing, you know what I mean? And like her, in her amateur career, I like that kind of shit. So, all right, you guys, I will talk to you guys on my best bets and props video. Released all the bets I placed in this card. I'll probably be adding a couple that we talked about today as well. So, talk to you guys then, and everybody, good luck in all your betting action for the final UFC card of the year, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Cheers.